When the crown trembles, the dancer who brought a kingdom to its knees. They called him the man who never bled. Adrian Voss ran half the city with a look, and nobody said had ever seen his hand shake, until a broken ballerina in a second-hand dress stepped onto his floor, and the Empire watched his fingers betray him in front of every enemy he had. One tremor, one woman, one night that rewrote every rule in the underworld. What happens next will cost lives, burn empires, and prove the deadliest weapon in a city of killers isn't a gun. It's trust. If you're still with me, welcome. Settle in, because this story runs deep and it runs dark. Drop a like if you want more stories like this one, and tell me in the comments what city you're watching from tonight. I want to see how far Alara and Adrian's story travels. Now, let's begin. The rain in Saint Mercier never fell clean. It came down gray, sliding off the Art Deco spires of the old theater district and pooling in gutters that smelled like gasoline and cheap perfume. On a Thursday in late October, the city wore that rain like a bruise, and beneath the streets, in a place that did not appear on any map, 1,000 candles were being lit. The Valerium was not a club. Clubs had names on doors. The Valerium had a wrought iron elevator behind a laundromat on Blackwood Avenue, and a doorman named Costa who'd killed 3 men before his 30th birthday. You got in by invitation, or you got in because someone wanted you to be seen, or you didn't get in at all. Tonight, Alara Quinn was getting in because someone wanted to watch her suffer. She pressed her forehead against the cold metal of the service elevator and counted her breaths. 4 in, 6 out. The trick her mother had taught her when she was 9 years old and couldn't sleep before a recital. Her mother had been dead 11 years. The trick still worked, mostly. "You're shaking," said the girl next to her. Luana, maybe. Or Lorena. Alara had stopped learning names. "I'm cold. It's 80 degrees down there." "Then I'm something else." The elevator jolted and began to descend. Alara kept her eyes on the brass panel above the door, watching the floor numbers disappear into negatives. B1, B2, B3. The Valerium sat 4 stories below street level, carved out of what had once been a Prohibition-era speakeasy and expanded over the decades into something that its patrons liked to call a cathedral. Alara thought cathedrals were for prayer. This place was for transactions. The doors opened onto a long marble corridor, and the sound hit her first. A swell of strings, the low murmur of 300 voices pitched just above a whisper, the clink of crystal on crystal. Then the smell, lilies and bourbon and something faintly animal underneath, the smell of money that had been earned badly. "Quinn, you're late." The floor manager was a thin man in a thinner suit, a headset pressed to one ear. He didn't look at her face. He looked at her legs, at her shoulders, at the angle of her neck, the way a butcher looks at a cut of meat. "Third plinth, stage left. You know the blocking. You don't move unless the music moves you. You don't smile unless someone pays you to. And for God's sake, don't fall off the box again." That was 6 months ago. I have a long memory. He was gone before she could answer. She stood in the corridor for a moment, alone, and let her hand drift to the pendant at her throat. A cheap silver thing, a dancer in mid-leap. Her mother's. She tucked it under the collar of the costume. The costume was a joke. A sheer wrap of champagne-colored silk that left her arms bare, and her back half exposed, pinned at one shoulder with a brooch shaped like a thorn. Alara Quinn had once danced the lead in Giselle at the Harrow Opera House. She had once been reviewed in 3 languages. Tonight she was going to stand on a box. You took the job, she reminded herself. You knew what the job was. The job was this: be beautiful, be silent, be still. The Valerium hired 4 living statues a night. Former dancers, failed actresses, women who had something in their bones that caught the light, and they posed on black lacquered plinths around the edges of the main floor while the city's rich and dangerous ate truffled quail and negotiated the future of things they would never admit to owning. The pay was $300. The rule was you did not move. You did not speak. You were furniture, and furniture that misbehaved did not get hired again. $300 would cover the rent she owed, and half of the rent she was going to owe, and none of the medical bills she'd been ignoring for a year. But it would cover the rent. She walked down the corridor. Her bare feet made no sound on the marble. The main room of the Valerium had a ceiling painted to look like a storm. Black clouds, a smear of lightning frozen mid-strike, and a single gold sun in the far corner, half swallowed. Below the ceiling, chandeliers the size of small cars, a dance floor of inlaid rosewood, and round tables draped in ink-black linen. Men in tuxedos, women in gowns that cost more than houses, waiters moving between them like ghosts, trays held at exactly shoulder height, and at the edges of the room, the statues. 4 women on 4 plinths, already in place when Alara arrived, already motionless, their eyes focused on nothing. She stepped up onto the 3rd plinth, stage left. Her plinth faced the long bar, and beyond it, the private booths where the real business of the night was conducted. She settled into her pose, weight on her left leg, right leg extended slightly back, arms raised in a soft fourth, chin tilted up. A pose from the second act of a ballet no one in this room had ever seen. The music swelled. A jazz trio on the far stage, a woman with a voice like burnt honey singing something in French. Alara let her eyes unfocus. She had learned over the 8 months she had been doing this how to be nowhere. You took your mind and you put it somewhere else. A beach, a childhood bedroom, a rehearsal hall at 6 in the morning, when the light came through the high windows and the floor was still cold. Tonight she couldn't get there. Tonight her mind stayed in her body, and her body hurt. 40 minutes in, the first one touched her. He was a fat man, 50s, red-faced, with a woman half his age laughing at his elbow. He walked past her plinth, stopped, and ran one thick finger from her ankle up to her knee. The woman with him laughed harder. Alara did not move. You did not move. That was the rule. Christ, she's cold, the man said. Are you sure she's real? Poke her harder. See if she yelps. He didn't. He laughed and moved on. Alara held her pose and counted her breaths. 4 in, 6 out. An hour later, a woman in emerald silk stopped in front of her plinth with a champagne flute and considered her for a long moment, head tilted. Then she tipped the flute slowly and let a thin stream of champagne run down Alara's bare shoulder. Alara felt it slide along her collarbone, past her sternum, into the silk of the dress. The woman smiled, said something in a language Alara didn't know, and walked on. 4 in, 6 out. Across the room, at a booth lit by a single low lamp, a man named Adrian Voss was watching. He had not been watching her specifically. He had been watching the room, the way he always watched rooms. The way a tired predator watches a waterhole, alert to patterns, to who was missing, to which old enemies were suddenly standing too close together. Adrian Voss was 41 years old, and he had run the eastern half of Saint Mercier for a little under a decade. He had inherited half of it from his father and taken the other half by force, and in the quiet of his own mind, he was not sure which half he regretted more. He was a lean man, tall, with black hair gone silver at the temples, and a face that had once been called beautiful before it had been broken and put back together. There was a scar running through his left eyebrow, a memento from a night he did not allow himself to think about. He wore a black suit, a white shirt open at the collar, no jewelry, no watch. His hands rested on the table in front of him. They were long-fingered, surgeon's hands. One of them, the right, twitched once, almost imperceptibly, and he covered it with the other. You're quiet tonight, Adrian. The speaker was Nikolai Arzu, who had sat at Adrian's right hand for 15 years, and who understood him better than any man alive, which was not saying much. Nikolai was broad, gray-bearded, built like a door. He sipped his whiskey and watched Adrian over the rim of the glass. I'm always quiet. You're quieter. Something on your mind? Nothing I want to talk about here. Vega showed up with 3 of his lieutenants. That mean anything to you? It means he's showing me he has 3 lieutenants. He didn't have to bring them all. He didn't have to come. Nikolai grunted. They watched the room together. On the dance floor, couples moved through a waltz with the stiffness of people who had been taught to dance by paid instructors. At the bar, a congressman was laughing too loudly at a joke a woman in red had told him. And against the far wall, on her little black plinth, a dancer stood very still, while champagne dried on her collarbone. The statue on 3, Nikolai said. The brunette. She's bleeding. Adrian's eyes moved. He had not noticed her until that moment. She had been, as she was paid to be, invisible. But now he looked. Her bare foot resting on the lacquered plinth had a thin dark line running across the top of it, near the big toe. Something had cut her. Glass, maybe, on the way in. She hasn't moved. No, she hasn't moved in 2 hours. They don't. It's the job. Adrian took a slow sip of his drink. He did not know why he kept watching her. She was a small thing, delicate through the shoulders, with a long neck and dark hair pinned up in a way that had probably taken her an hour. Her eyes were fixed on some point in the middle distance, and there was nothing in her face, no fear, no boredom, no anger, just absence. The total trained absence of a woman who had taught herself not to be anywhere. Adrian Voss knew that look. He had worn it himself, a long time ago, in rooms he preferred not to remember. "Who owns her?" he said quietly. "What?" "The statue." "Who books her?" "Who sent her?" Nikolai frowned. "I don't know. You want me to find out?" "Not yet." It was at that moment, as if the room had been waiting for him to pay attention, that the thing happened. A man in a wine-red jacket had broken away from a group near the bar and was making his way across the floor with the wandering purposefulness of someone who had been drinking since noon. Alara saw him coming from the corner of her vision. She knew him vaguely. Conrad Bellini, a middle-tier money launderer, a man whose name she had heard whispered at 2 different parties this month, with the kind of disgust normally reserved for insects. Bellini stopped in front of her plinth. He swayed slightly. He smiled. "I know you," he said. Alara did not move. "I know you. You're the ballet girl, the one who couldn't dance anymore." He leaned in. He smelled like gin and sweat. "I saw you at the Harrow, years ago. You were, what's the word? Luminous." She held the pose. 4 in, 6 out. "Now look at you, standing on a fucking box. How does that happen, How does a luminous girl end up standing on a box for men like me?" He reached up. His hand closed around her ankle, not hard, but not gently either. "Say something." She did not move. "Say something pretty." He squeezed. His thumb pressed into the cut on her foot. Pain shot up her leg. Her breath caught. A tiny sound. Barely a sound at all. And he grinned, because he had heard it. "There she is." He squeezed again. "There's the ballet girl. Come on, say something. Dance for me. Dance for the room. That's what you're for, isn't it?" The room had begun to notice. Not everyone, but the tables nearest the plinth had gone quiet, and the quiet was spreading. Alara felt it, the way you feel the temperature drop before a storm. She felt her own heart suddenly enormous in her chest. She felt the cut on her foot. She felt the thorn-shaped brooch at her shoulder digging into her skin. "Don't move," she told herself. "Don't move." $300. The rent? 4 in, 6 out. Bellini laughed. He reached up with his free hand and took the hem of the silk wrap between 2 fingers, and he began very slowly to tug it downward. "Let's see what we're working with." And then a voice said from somewhere behind him, "Take your hand off her." It was a quiet voice. It did not have to be loud. The room around it went still in a way that suggested the voice was known. Bellini turned, still smiling, still holding the silk. "Voss, you want to turn? Wait in line. Take your hand off her, Conrad." "Or what?" Adrian Voss had crossed the room without anyone seeing him cross it. He was standing 3 feet from Bellini now, his hands loose at his sides, his face perfectly composed. The scar through his eyebrow looked deeper in the chandelier light. "Or I'll take it off you," he said. Bellini's smile faltered. There was a pause, maybe 3 seconds long, in which several men at several tables quietly put their hands near certain places inside their jackets, and 2 bodyguards by the east door shifted their weight, and Nikolai Arzu, still at his booth, set down his glass. Bellini let go of the silk. He let go of her ankle. "Jesus, Voss. She's a statue. Relax. I was having fun. Get out." "What?" "Get out of this club tonight. Don't come back." "You don't run the Valerium." "No," Adrian said. "But I run Burkhoff, who owns this club, and I run the men who work the door. And if you are still breathing the air down here in 10 minutes, Conrad, I'll take it personally." "Do you want me to take it personally?" Bellini opened his mouth. He closed it. He looked for a moment like a boy who had been caught doing something behind a school gym. Then the expression hardened into something smaller and meaner, and he turned and walked, not quickly, but not slowly, toward the elevator. The room exhaled. The jazz trio, bless them, chose that exact moment to pivot into a new song, something slower, something in a minor key. Conversations resumed with a kind of exaggerated casualness. Adrian did not look at the room. He looked at the dancer on the plinth. Alara had not moved. Her arms were still in their soft fourth. Her chin was still tilted up. But her eyes, and he saw this clearly because he was now standing close enough, her eyes were wet and very bright and fixed on him with an expression he could not read. "You can come down now," he said. She did not answer. "Miss, you can come down. It's over." "I'm not supposed to move." Her voice was low, a little rough, like she had not used it in a long time. "You can move." "I'm not supposed to speak." "You can speak." She swallowed. She did not come down. Adrian looked at her for a long moment. Then he did something he had not planned to do, something that, later, he would not be entirely able to explain, not to Nikolai, not to himself. He held out his hand. "Dance with me," he said. "What?" "One dance. It'll give the room something else to look at, and you can get off that box." "I'm bleeding." "I saw. I'm not a dancer anymore. I pose." "I don't believe you." She looked at his hand. It was a good hand. Long, pale, a single silver ring on the smallest finger. And she saw, because she was trained to see things like this, that the hand was trembling, very slightly. Almost nothing. But the thumb was vibrating against the forefinger at a rate her body recognized instantly, because her own body had once done the same thing before every opening night for 9 years. He was afraid. Adrian Voss, the man whose name the floor manager had whispered in the corridor with the kind of reverence reserved for weather, was afraid. Of what? She did not know. She put her hand in his. She came down from the plinth carefully, because of her foot, and because the silk wrap had slipped a little and needed to be repinned, and because her legs had gone numb from standing for 3 hours. He steadied her at the elbow. His grip was careful. His tremor did not stop. The jazz trio, reading the room like professionals, slid into a tango. It was not a proper tango. It was a jazz arrangement, slow, with the bass walking a long, low line, and the clarinet crying somewhere in the middle register. But it was close enough. Alara understood it the way you understand a language you were raised in. Her body understood before her mind did. Her right hand went to his shoulder. His left hand found the small of her back. His right hand closed around hers, and there, she felt it again. The tremor, running from his palm into her fingers like a small electrical current. "Follow me," he murmured. "No," she said quietly. "You follow me." His eyebrows rose very slightly, and then they were moving. The room saw it. Of course the room saw it. 300 people in a converted speakeasy, and at least 200 of them ran some corner of the city's underworld, and all of them had spent a lifetime learning to notice details. They saw that Adrian Voss, who had executed a man on this very floor in 2019, who had never been seen to dance in public, who had once broken a senator's jaw for touching his sleeve without permission, was dancing with a living statue. They saw that he was not leading. They saw that he was following, and following well, with the quiet attention of a man who had been taught something once and was remembering it in real time. They saw her guide him through a long, slow turn, and they saw his hand on her hand, and they saw it shake. One woman in a silver dress, sitting 3 tables away, leaned into her companion and whispered, "Look at his hand." "Which hand?" "The right one." "Christ, is that—" "Don't say it out loud." At the bar, a man named Tomas Vega, who had come in with 3 lieutenants and a great deal to prove, watched the dance and felt something cold and delighted bloom in his chest. He had known Adrian Voss for 20 years. He had never, not once, seen the man tremble. "Well," he said, to no one in particular. "Well, well, well." One of his lieutenants glanced at him. "Boss?" "Nothing." Vega sipped his drink. "Just an interesting night." At his booth, Nikolai Arzu had not moved. He was watching Adrian with the steady, unreadable gaze of a man who had seen every version of his friend over 3 decades and was seeing, for the first time, a version he did not recognize. Nikolai noticed the tremor. Nikolai understood immediately what the room was going to do with the tremor. Nikolai did not blink. The song, mercifully, was short. The dance ended. Adrian stepped back, bowed his head very slightly, and let her hand go. "What's your name?" he said. "Alara." "Alara Goya." "Quinn." "Alara Quinn, thank you for the dance. You followed well." "I had a good lead." She did not smile. Her face was still doing that thing, the absence, but something behind the eyes had flickered. "You're bleeding on the floor," he said. "I know." "Go home. Get it looked at. You're done here tonight." "I need the $300. He reached inside his jacket. He took out a silver money clip. He peeled off bills. She did not count them. She was not going to count them. And he pressed them into her palm and closed her fingers over them. "You're done here tonight," he said again. And then, more quietly, "I'm sorry about your foot." He turned and walked back to his booth. The floor manager caught her by the service door, hissing, "What in the hell was that? What the hell was that? You're supposed to stand. You're supposed to stand." "He asked me to dance." "I don't care if the Pope asked you to dance. You don't." He stopped. He'd clocked the bills in her fist. He'd done the math. He swallowed. "Go home, Quinn. We'll talk about your schedule," which was how she knew she was fired. She walked out of the Valerium on her cut foot, past Costa the doorman, who did not look at her, and up into the rain of Blackwood Avenue. And she stood on the wet sidewalk for a long moment before she started to shake. Not the graceful tremor of a dancer's nerves, but a deep bone-level shudder that started in her knees and went all the way up. She pressed her back against the brick wall of the laundromat and breathed. 4 in, 6 out. $300 plus whatever he had given her. She uncurled her fingers under the streetlight. $3,000. She stared at it. $3,000 in crisp hundreds. She had never in her life held $3,000 in her hand. She laughed, once, a small broken sound, and then she caught a cab. The cab let her out on Verity Street, in front of the building that had been, for 3 years now, her home. It was not a good building. The hot water was a matter of negotiation. The neighbor above her played the accordion badly from 11 to 1 in the morning, most nights. But the rent was low, and the super did not ask questions, and Alara Quinn had learned, after her life had come apart, that what she needed more than anything was a place that did not ask her questions. She climbed 3 flights of stairs. Her foot throbbed. She let herself into apartment 3C, turned on the single bulb in the hallway, and sat down on the floor because her legs would not carry her any farther. She spread the $3,000 on the linoleum in front of her. She stared at it. She thought about Adrian Voss's hand trembling against her fingers. She thought about the scar through his eyebrow. She thought about the way he had said, "I'm sorry about your foot," quietly, like he meant it, like it was a thing he was unaccustomed to meaning. She thought about the woman who had poured champagne down her shoulder. She thought about Conrad Bellini's thumb on her cut. She thought about her mother's silver pendant, still at her throat, and she touched it, and she did not cry, because she had stopped crying about a great many things a long time ago. She said, out loud, to the empty apartment, "Don't be a fool." Then she got up. She cleaned the cut on her foot. She put the $3,000 in a coffee tin under the sink, where she kept things she did not want to think about. She took a shower. She went to bed. Chum. At the Valerium, the night wore on. The jazz trio played. The congressman left with the woman in red. Tomas Vega finished his drink and made a phone call in the corridor, smiling to himself the whole time. Adrian Voss sat at his booth and did not speak for a long hour. Nikolai, finally, broke the silence. "You want to tell me what that was?" "Not particularly." "Adrian." "Nikolai." Your hand was shaking. "I know. In a room of 300 people who would cut your throat for $1, your hand was shaking." "I know, Nikolai." Nikolai took a long breath. He was not a man who lost his temper. He was a man whose temper had been ground down to a fine, patient nothing over 30 years of working for difficult men. But he was, just now, as close to angry as he got. "Since when?" he said. Adrian did not answer for a moment. He looked at his own right hand on the table. It was still, now. It was, most of the time, still. But the tremor came and went as it pleased, and had been coming more often, for about 6 months, since a night he did not talk about, since a betrayal that had nearly killed him and had, instead, killed someone else, since a basement on the west side of the river, and a name he could not make himself say out loud, even to Nikolai. Since a while, he said. Who knows? Only you. And now apparently half the Valerium. Vega saw. I know. Vega is going to talk. I know. And the woman, the dancer. Adrian was quiet. Adrian, she felt it. She felt your hand. She knows. I know. Nikolai waited. Find her, Adrian said at last. Tomorrow. Find out everything about her. Where she lives. Where she trained. Who her people are. Who her debts are to. Everything. And then? And then I want to see her. Nikolai studied him. Adrian, don't. Adrian, you don't. It's not that. Adrian's voice was low and very even. It's not that, Nikolai. Then what? Adrian lifted his right hand. He held it out, palm down, over the black linen of the table. For a long moment it was perfectly still. And then, small and slow and unmistakable, the thumb began to vibrate against the forefinger. The same tremor, the same rhythm, the one he had not been able to stop for 6 months. She knows something, he said, watching his own hand the way a man watches a spider. She's a dancer. Her whole life is her body. You saw her up there. 3 hours. She didn't move. You don't do that without knowing things the rest of us don't know. She knows something about this, and she's going to teach me how to make it stop. And if she can't? Adrian closed his hand into a fist. The tremor vanished. Then Vega was right to smile, he said, and I have about a month left to live. By Friday morning, the story was out. Not in the papers. It never went to papers, but in the places that mattered. In the back booth of a diner on 12th Street, where 3 men who worked for Tomas Vega ate eggs and laughed too loudly. In a salon uptown, where a woman who laundered money for a cartel told her hairdresser, who told her husband, who was a cop. In a private gym downtown, where a man named Reyes, who had wanted Adrian Voss dead for 11 years, heard it from his trainer and sat down very slowly on a weight bench. By noon, half the city's underworld knew that Adrian Voss's hand had trembled on the dance floor of the Valerium. By 1 o'clock, a woman named Victoria Salamanca, who ran the western half of Saint-Mercier, who hated Adrian Voss the way fire hates water, and who had been waiting for a crack, any crack, for nearly a decade, was sitting at her desk in a penthouse 40 stories above the river, tapping a long red fingernail against a glass of wine and thinking for the first time in years that she might be about to win. Get me everything on the girl, she said to the man standing by the door. The dancer, Quinn. I want her whole life in a folder on this desk by morning. Yes, ma'am. And start the paperwork on her. Quiet at first. Scandals, rumors, something from her old company, something with a name attached. I want her reputation in pieces by the end of the week. Yes, ma'am. If Voss wants her, Vittoria Salamanca said, smiling for the first time that day, then Voss is going to watch her burn. Alara Quinn woke on Friday at 10 in the morning with a cut foot, a sore back, and a pounding in her ears that she at first mistook for her hangover before she realized she had not drunk anything the night before. Someone was knocking on her door. She pulled on a robe. She limped down the hall. She looked through the peephole. A man stood on the other side of her door. Large, gray-bearded, built like a door himself. He was not smiling. He was not scowling. He was holding a small white envelope in one hand, and in the other hand a paper cup of coffee from the bakery on the corner, steam coming off the top. She did not open the door. She said through it, "Who are you?" "My name is Nikolai Arzu," the man said. His voice was soft and deep. "Mr. Voss sent me. He would like to meet with you today, Miss Quinn, if you are willing. I've brought you coffee. I don't know how you take it, so I brought it black and I brought sugar." She stared at the peephole. Her mother's pendant was cold against her collarbone. Her right hand, she realized, was trembling. A small thing. Almost nothing. 4 in, 6 out. She opened the door. Nikolai Arzu stood in the doorway with the coffee held out at chest height, patient as weather. He did not cross the threshold. He did not look past her into the apartment. He did not do any of the small things that men of his size did, by accident or design, when they wanted a woman to feel a room getting smaller. "Miss Quinn." "Mr. Arzu." "Just Nikolai, if you don't mind." "I haven't decided yet if I mind." A small thing happened at the corner of his mouth that might, in a different man, have been a smile. He extended the coffee a little further. She took it. The cup was warm through the paper. She did not drink from it. "May I come in?" he asked. "No." "That's fair." "I don't know you." "You don't." "I don't know your boss, either." "You danced with him last night." "That isn't knowing someone." "No," Nikolai agreed. "It isn't." She kept her hand on the door, holding it half open, her body angled so that he would have to physically move her to come in. Her bare feet were cold on the hallway tile. She had not had time to pin her hair, and it fell around her shoulders in a dark, unbrushed mess. She was aware, in the way women are always aware, of exactly how little she was wearing under the robe and exactly how unconcerned she needed to look about it. "He wants to meet with you today," Nikolai said. "This afternoon. He understands if the answer is no. He asked me to tell you that specifically. The answer can be no, and nothing happens. You keep the money. No one comes back. Nobody bothers you about last night. And if the answer is yes, then I drive you somewhere and you have a conversation with him and I drive you home. That's the whole thing?" "Where?" "His house. It's in the hills about 40 minutes out. I'm not getting in a car with a man I don't know and going 40 minutes into the hills." "No," Nikolai said. "You shouldn't. I wouldn't if I were you. So here's what I will do. I will leave this envelope with you. Inside is an address, a phone number, and a driver's name. The driver is a woman. Her name is Paulina. She has worked for Mr. Voss for 11 years and she does not work for anyone else. If you call the number, she will come to this building in a gray sedan and she will take you to the house and then she will take you home. I will not be in the car. Mr. Voss will not be in the car. You can call her or you cannot call her, and either answer is the right answer." He held out the envelope. She took it with the hand not holding the coffee. "Why are you being so careful?" she asked. Nikolai considered the question. He seemed, briefly, to be choosing between several honest answers. "Because he told me to be," he said finally, "and because last night you struck me as a person who had already been handled enough for one lifetime." She looked at him. He nodded, once, as if that concluded a piece of business neither of them had named. Then he turned and walked to the stairwell, his hand trailing along the banister, the way a man will touch a handrail out of long habit rather than need. He did not look back. She shut the door. She leaned against it. The coffee was black and there were 3 sugar packets taped to the side of the cup with a small strip of masking tape. She laughed, once, a sound that came out dry. The envelope held exactly what he had said it held. An address printed in small, clean type on a white card. A phone number beneath it. The name, Paulina. Nothing else. No note. No signature. No please. No thank you. It was, she thought, the most respectful invitation she had ever received, and the fact that it came from a man like Adrian Voss made her hands unsteady in a way that had nothing to do with the cut on her foot. She sat down at her kitchen table with the card in front of her and did not move for almost an hour. She thought about the $3,000 in the coffee tin under the sink. She thought about her rent, which was due in 11 days. She thought about the cellist she used to date in Boston years ago, who had told her once, seriously, over breakfast, "Alara, you have a bad habit of walking toward dangerous things because they're the only things that make you feel anything at all." She had hated him for saying it. She had known, even as she hated him, that he was right. She thought about Adrian Voss's right hand. She picked up her phone and she called the number. A woman answered on the second ring. The voice was low, unhurried, slightly accented, somewhere Eastern European, Alara thought, though she could not have placed it more specifically than that. "This is Paulina. My name is Alara Quinn. I was told, I know who you are, Miss Quinn. What time would you like to be picked up?" Alara looked at the clock on her stove. 2. "I'll be outside at 2. I don't know how long this is going to take. As long as you want it to, and no longer. I'll wait." The line went dead. She stood in the kitchen for a long minute. Then she went to the closet and began going through her clothes with the specific, half-angry precision of a woman who is about to choose between every dress she owned and hate herself for every choice she made. She settled finally on a simple gray wool dress with long sleeves, a hem that hit at the knee, and a high neckline that did not apologize to anyone for existing. She pinned her hair up. She put on her mother's pendant and tucked it under the collar. She cleaned the cut on her foot again and bandaged it properly. She pulled on stockings and a pair of low black heels she had owned for 6 years. She looked at herself in the mirror and said quietly, "Don't be a fool." Then she went downstairs. The gray sedan was at the curb at 2 on the dot. The driver was a small, tidy woman in her 50s, gray-streaked dark hair pulled back in a low bun, a navy jacket, sensible shoes. She stepped out to open the rear door without saying anything, and when Alara was seated, she closed the door and returned to the wheel as if they had been doing this every Thursday for years. "There's water in the pocket on the back of my seat," Paulina said, pulling into traffic. "Also mints. Also a phone charger if you need one. The drive is 40 minutes in this traffic. You don't have to talk. I don't mind quiet." "Thank you." "You're welcome." They drove. The city slid past the window, the cramped blocks of the theater district giving way to the broad avenues of the financial quarter, then the long green sprawl of Lanehart Park, then the bridge, and then they were climbing. St. Mercier sat in a kind of shallow bowl, and the hills rose on the northern side in long, slow ridges covered in old oak and older money. The houses got further apart, the walls got higher, the gates got more serious. Alara watched it all the way. A tourist watches a country she has read about and never expected to visit. She did not feel afraid. She noticed, with some surprise, that she did not feel afraid. What she felt was the particular stillness that came over her body before a performance, a kind of quiet settling, the way a flock of birds lifts off a telephone wire all at once and then settles again in a new arrangement. Paulina turned off the highway onto a narrow road lined with stone walls. A gate opened ahead of them without anyone appearing to operate it. Beyond the gate, a gravel drive curved through a stand of cypress, and at the end of the drive stood a house. It was not, as she had half expected, a mansion. It was an old stone building, long and low, 2 stories at most, with deep eaves and a slate roof that had been patched in a dozen visible places. A working house, a house that had been lived in hard. There were dog bowls on the porch. There was a bicycle leaning against the wall of a small outbuilding. There was a kitchen garden at the side, turning in October to brown stalks and the last of the pumpkins. "He grows his own tomatoes," Paulina said, pulling up to the front. "In the summer. Badly. Badly. He overwaters them. I've told him. He doesn't listen." Paulina got out and opened her door. Alara stepped onto the gravel and looked at the house. The front door opened before she had taken 3 steps, and Nikolai Arzu came out onto the porch, wiping his hands on a dish towel. "You came," he said. "I came." "He's in the library. I'll show you." He led her inside. The interior of the house was low-ceilinged and warm, with dark wood floors that creaked companionably under her heels. There were rugs. Worn, good ones. There were books everywhere, on shelves and on tables and stacked on the stairs. There was a smell of coffee and old smoke, and faintly of whatever he had been cooking before she arrived. It was not the house of a crime boss, or at least not the house of the kind of crime boss she had been braced for. It was the house of the man who lived alone and read a great deal and did not have anyone to perform for. The library was at the back of the house. One wall was all windows, looking out over a long sloping lawn, and beyond it, the hills. The other 3 walls were books, floor to ceiling. A low fire burned in a stone fireplace. A piano stood in the corner, sheet music open on its stand, a coffee cup left unattended on the lid. Adrian Voss was standing by the window with his back to the door. He was in shirt sleeves, no jacket, the sleeves rolled to the elbow. When he heard her come in, he turned. He looked somehow smaller than he had at the Valerium. Not physically. He was still a tall man, still that long, clean line from shoulder to hip. But the room at the Valerium had required him to be a certain kind of man, and this room required nothing of him, and the difference was visible. "Miss Quinn." "Mr. Voss." "Thank you for coming." "I almost didn't." "I know." Nikolai set down the dish towel he had brought with him, folded neatly on a side table, and said, "I'll be in the kitchen. Holler if you need me." He went out. He did not quite shut the door. Alara noticed. Adrian saw her notice. "He's protective," he said. "Of you or of me?" "At the moment? Of you, I think. He doesn't always know what to do with me when I'm this." "This?" doing something he doesn't understand. She stood just inside the doorway. He gestured at two leather chairs by the fire. She walked to one and sat. He sat in the other. Between them was a low table with a tea service on it, 2 cups, a plate of small dark cookies. He did not pour. He waited to see if she would. She didn't. "Your foot," he said. "It's fine. Did you see someone?" "It didn't need stitches. It might scar." "I have worse." He nodded. He looked at her for a long moment in the firelight, and it was not the look she was expecting, not the look of a man who had summoned a woman to his house in the hills. It was the steady, quiet, assessing look of a surgeon studying an X-ray. She felt herself inspected and did not move. "Miss Quinn." "Alara is fine." "Alara." "What do you want, Mr. Voss?" He breathed out slowly. He put his hands on the arms of his chair. His right hand, she saw, was perfectly still at the moment. She was not fooled. "I need to tell you something," he said, "and I need you to understand before I tell you that no one in my life except Nikolai knows this thing. If you walk out of this room and tell anyone, even one person, even a person you love very much, it will go badly for me. Do you understand what I am saying? You're saying you'll have me killed. I'm saying someone will, not necessarily me. There are people in this city who have been looking for a crack in me for a long time. If you give them one, I won't necessarily be the one who reacts. And my reacting is not the worst thing that could happen to you in that sequence of events. Do you understand?" She looked at him. "Yes." "Do you want to leave now? I will pay you for your time and Paulina will take you home and none of this will have happened." "How much?" 10,000. She made a sound that was almost a laugh. 10,000 not to listen to you." "Yes." "And if I stay and listen?" "Then we're having a different conversation." She thought about it. She genuinely thought about it. $10,000 was 4 months' rent and the medical bill and the bow she needed for the one pair of point shoes she still owned and couldn't bring herself to throw out. $10,000 was a long breath. $10,000 was the cellist in Boston saying you walk toward dangerous things because they're the only things that make you feel anything. "I'll stay," she said. "You're sure?" "No, tell me anyway." He nodded. He was quiet for a moment, looking into the fire. Then he held out his right hand, palm down, over the space between them. It began to tremble, small, almost invisible, a vibration in the thumb and the forefinger that she would not have noticed if she had not been looking for it. She had been looking for it. "This," he said, "this is what you're here for." "How long?" 6 months. A little longer. "Constant?" "It comes and goes. It's worse when I'm tired. It's worse when I'm stressed. It's worse when there are many people in a room and I have to be something for them. Last night at the Valerium was the worst it's ever been in public." "Have you seen a doctor?" "I have seen 3. Different doctors. Very discreet. They have told me a number of different things. One of them thinks it is a nerve damaged in a fight 2 years ago. One of them thinks it is a neurological condition I'd rather not name. The third one," he breathed out, "the third one told me it was in my head, that it was not my body that had decided to betray me, it was my mind. That after what happened 6 months ago, my body was simply remembering. That every time I have to command a room, my hand remembers that the last time I commanded a room, something very bad happened." "Bomb." "What happened 6 months ago?" He looked at her. "I'm not going to tell you that tonight," he said. "I may tell you eventually. Not tonight." "All right. I need you to understand, Alara. Last night, in that room, every man who matters saw this." He closed his hand, opened it, closed it. "Vega saw it. Reyes will have heard about it by tomorrow, if he hasn't heard about it already. Salamanca certainly knows. In a month, if I cannot make it stop, I will be dead. It is that simple. The moment a man like me cannot control his own body in public, he has begun to die. The timeline is short. And what is it you think I can do?" "I don't know." "That's an honest answer." "I don't have a lot of honest answers these days. I'm giving you the ones I have." He looked at her, and for the first time since she had walked into the room, there was something in his face other than composure. He looked, for a moment, simply tired. "You stood on that plinth for 3 hours, Alara. Watched you. You did not move. A woman poured champagne on you, and you did not move. A man cut your foot, and you did not move. Bellini. Bellini put his hand on you, and until he twisted it, you did not move. That is a kind of control I have never possessed. That is a kind of control my doctors cannot describe, let alone teach. I have spent my whole life learning to control a room, and somewhere along the way I stopped being able to control the one thing I thought I had, which is my own body in a room. I would like to learn what you know. I know how to stand on a box. You know how to put your mind somewhere it will not be hurt while your body does a job. I know a lot of men who would cut off fingers to learn that. I'm not going to teach you how to stand on a box, Mr. Voss. Adrian? Adrian, I'm not going to teach you how to be a statue. That isn't a skill I'm proud of. Then teach me whatever the thing is underneath it. The thing that made you able to follow my lead last night with a cut on your foot while the whole room watched. The thing that made you the dancer I was told about. She went very still. Who told you about me? Nikolai pulled your file this morning. I have a file. Everyone has a file, Ilara. You had one before last night. Yours was thin. It got thicker quickly. You trained at the Konstantinov Academy from the age of 7. You were with the Harrow Opera House from 19 to 24. You danced Giselle, Odette, Juliet. You were reviewed in 3 languages. At 24, you had a surgery. I will not speculate about why. And when you came back, you were placed in the Corps, and 6 months later, you were let go. You have been working in the Valerium and 2 other places like it for the last 8 months. You live alone. You have a sister in Portland who you have not spoken to in 11 months. Your mother is dead. Your father is... Stop. He stopped. I don't like that you have that, she said. Her voice was shaking, a small vibration that matched exactly the tremor in his hand. I don't like that you read that. I don't like that there is a file. I know. Don't pull any more of it. Don't read any more of it. If you want to know something about me, you ask me. All right. Say it. I won't pull any more of it. All right. She breathed. 4 in, 6 out. Her hands were on the arms of the chair, and she realized she was gripping the leather so hard her knuckles had gone white. She made herself let go. What are you offering me? She said. In exchange? Name it. That's not an answer. That's a trap. You know that. It isn't a trap. It's the truth. Tell me what would make this worth your time, and I will either agree to it or say why I can't, and you will know, either way, that you are not being lied to. She looked at him. 20,000 a month, she said, for as long as this lasts, paid on the 1st, in cash. Fine. A place to live. Not with you. I'm not going to live in your house, but somewhere safe, somewhere my current neighbors cannot find me. Because I have to assume that by now, half the people in that room last night know who I am, and some of them are going to be curious about me. You can live in the carriage house here if you want. It's separate. It has its own entrance. Or I can put you in an apartment in the city. Your choice. The apartment. Fine. And I want... She stopped. She was about to ask for something, and she wasn't sure she wanted to ask for it. She asked for it anyway. I want to be able to stop. If I want to stop, I stop. You don't make it difficult. You don't send people to my door. You don't cut me off from anything. If I say I'm done, and I walk out, and that's the end. He was quiet for a beat. That's harder, he said. Not because I wouldn't let you go. I would. But other people will have seen you with me. And what I can promise you from me is not the same as what I can promise you from them. I understand. What I can promise is this. If you say you are done, from me you will get silence. I will not contact you again. I will not send anyone to your door. I will not ask anything further of you. If trouble finds you from other directions, and it might, I will protect you from it to the extent that I can. I will do that regardless of whether you are still teaching me or not, that I can promise. Everything else is the city. She studied him. That's fair? Is it enough? Yes. All right, one more thing. Go on. I want to know what happened 6 months ago. Not today, not next week, but eventually, before this is over. I want to know. He did not answer immediately. He looked for a moment like a man who had been asked to open a door he had sealed a long time ago and stopped noticing was there. All right, he said finally. Say it. Before this is over, I'll tell you what happened 6 months ago. All right. They sat in silence for a long moment. The fire popped. Somewhere in the house, a door opened and closed. Nikolai, probably, moving through rooms out of habit. Alara picked up the teapot at last and poured 2 cups and slid one across the table to him. He took it. His hand was steady again. She watched it. "When?" she asked. "Tomorrow, if you can." "Here? There's a room upstairs with a wood floor and no furniture. It used to be. It doesn't matter what it used to be. It's a good room. I can have whatever you need brought in. Mirrors, a bar, whatever you need." "I don't need mirrors. Mirrors teach you to dance for someone else. I need a floor and a wall and something to play music on." "All right. How many hours?" "However many you want. 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon for the first week. After that, we'll see." "Fine. You should know," she said, "that I am not a physical therapist. I am not a doctor. I am not any kind of expert on your body. I am a person who has trained for 17 years to know the difference between a body that is listening to itself and a body that is fighting itself. What I can teach you, I can teach you. What I can't, I can't. If what you have is a nerve, a physical broken thing, I'm not going to fix it with dance. You understand that?" "I understand. I also need to tell you—" She stopped. She had not meant to say this part. She said it anyway. "I also need to tell you that you have probably ruined my life with what you did last night. I know you didn't mean to, but you did. You danced with me in front of 300 people, and you let them all see your hand. They are going to come for you, and on the way to you, they are going to come for me. I have thought about this. That is part of why my price is what it is." "I know. Do you?" "I have been thinking about it since the moment I asked you to dance. I was thinking about it while I asked you. I knew what I was doing." "Then why did you do it?" He looked into the fire. He did not answer. "Adrian, I don't know," he said quietly. "I don't believe you." "I don't either, but it's the answer I have." She held his eyes for a long moment. The firelight moved across his face, catching the scar through his eyebrow, catching the silver at his temples, catching something tired and surprised and a little boyish at the corner of his mouth that she suspected did not get shown to many people. And she thought, with a clarity that frightened her, "I am in trouble. I am in real, specific, permanent trouble. I have been in this room for 40 minutes, and I am already in trouble." "Tomorrow," she said. 10 o'clock. "I'll send Paulina." "I can take the train. Please let me send Paulina." "Fine." She stood. He stood. He did not offer his hand, and she was grateful for it, because she did not want to touch his hand again today. Not because she did not want to, but because she did. And it was the kind of wanting she did not yet know what to do with. At the door of the library, she paused. "Adrian?" "Yes." "The third doctor, the one who told you it was in your head. I think he was probably right. I want you to know that going in. If what we do works, it will work because your body is going to learn to trust your mind again. And that is not a quick thing, and it is not a clean thing, and you are not going to like most of what I ask you to do. I want you to know that before you decide." "All right. I want you to be decided before tomorrow, not during." "I am decided." "All right." She walked out. Nikolai was in the kitchen, as he had said he would be, chopping something on a wooden board, and he looked up when she passed. "Done?" he said. "For today?" "Paulina's out front." "Thank you for the coffee this morning." "Don't mention it." She got into the gray sedan. Paulina pulled smoothly down the drive and through the gate, and the gate closed behind them, and Alara did not look back. Her hands, in her lap, were shaking. She clasped them together and pressed them against her thigh and waited for it to pass. "You have a preference for music, Miss Quinn?" "Anything without words." Paulina put on something with a cello and a slow piano, and they drove back to the city in the long gold light of a fall afternoon. Alara did not know, as they drove, that at that exact moment, 3 in the afternoon on a Friday in late October, a woman in a silver dress was sitting at a lunch table at a restaurant on the 43rd floor of a building called the Meridian, opening a white folder and reading a very detailed account of Alara Quinn's life. The folder contained photographs. Alara at 19 in a publicity shot for Giselle. Alara at 23, hollow-cheeked, leaving a hospital with her arm in a sling. Alara last month, leaving the Valerium at 2 in the morning, her head down, her hands in her pockets. It contained bank statements. It contained the name of the doctor who had performed her surgery. It contained the names of 3 men she had dated, briefly, since moving to St. Mercier, one of whom was already on Vittoria Salamanca's payroll and didn't know it yet. Vittoria Salamanca turned to Paige and smiled. "Poor thing," she said to no one in particular. Her assistant, a young woman named Dinah, said nothing, because Dinah had learned in 4 years of working for Vittoria Salamanca that nothing said by Vittoria at a lunch table required an answer. "Start with the company," Vittoria said. "The hero. Someone there knows something she'd rather the world didn't. Find me that person. Find me what they know. Then—" She closed the folder, slowly, and ran one red-polished nail along its edge. "Then let's make sure the right reporter gets a phone call, not the papers. The papers are so 1990s. Something online, something that moves." "Yes, ma'am." "And Dinah?" "Yes, ma'am. If by next Friday this woman still has a career, an apartment, or a good name, I'm going to be disappointed." "She won't, ma'am." "Good girl." Vittoria opened the menu. She ordered the fish. At another table, 2 men who worked for Thomas Vega were eating lunch, and when they saw who was sitting across the room from them, they stopped eating, and they waited politely for her to notice them. When she did, she lifted her wine glass, and they lifted theirs, and none of them said a word because at the level they all played at, lifting a wine glass was a whole conversation. Back in the hills, in the long low house of stone, Adrian Voss stood at the window of his library and watched the gravel drive until the gray sedan had disappeared through the gate. Then he walked to his desk. He sat down. He pulled open the bottom right drawer, which was locked. He unlocked it. He took out a small, leather-bound notebook, old, battered, the kind of thing a man carries for 20 years without anyone knowing he carries it. He opened it to a blank page. He picked up a pen. He held the pen over the page and his hand trembled. He waited. The trembling did not stop. He set the pen down. He closed his eyes. "Nikolai." A pause. Then, from the kitchen, "Yeah. Come in here a minute." Nikolai came in, drying his hands on the same dish towel from before. He stood in the doorway and waited. "Tell me I didn't make a mistake," Adrian said, quietly, without opening his eyes. Nikolai thought about this. "You made a mistake," Nikolai said. Adrian almost laughed. "But it's the mistake I would have made too, if I were you. Which isn't the same thing as being the right call, but it's something." Nikolai came into the room. He put a hand, briefly, on Adrian's shoulders. Not a squeeze, just a weight. "She's something, that girl. I'll tell you what I didn't tell you last night. When I went to her apartment this morning, I had the envelope ready. I had the whole speech ready. She opened the door, and I forgot the speech. She didn't say a word, and I forgot it." "Nikolai." "I know." "Don't." "I'm not saying what you think I'm saying. I'm saying, be careful. Not for you, for her. She doesn't know what she's just walked into. She thinks she knows. She doesn't. She's going to find out fast, and when she does, she is going to look at you, and whatever happens in her face in that moment is going to tell you what kind of man you are. Not a metaphor. Literally. You're going to see it. Do you understand?" "I understand." "Good." Nikolai squeezed his shoulder, once, a real grip this time, and walked out. Adrian opened his eyes. He looked down at his hand on the desk. It was still trembling. He watched it for a long time. He did not try to make it stop. On the other side of the city, Alara Quinn let herself into her apartment, closed the door, locked it, slid the chain, and then, without taking off her coat, walked into the bathroom and sat down on the edge of the tub. She did not cry. She did not shake. She sat very still, with her hands folded in her lap, and she stared at the white tile floor, and she thought about nothing at all for almost 20 minutes. Then she got up, and she took off her dress, and she hung it back in the closet. And she went to the kitchen, and she took the $3,000 out of the coffee tin under the sink, and she counted it, slowly, bill by bill, as if counting it would tell her something about what she had just agreed to. It didn't. She put the money back in the tin. She put the tin back under the sink. She closed the cabinet door. She stood in her small kitchen, in her small apartment, on her small street, in a city that had begun, quietly and without her noticing, to turn its head toward her. Outside on Verity Street, a man in a black jacket sat in a parked car across from her building and drank coffee from a paper cup. He was good at his job. He did not look up at her window once. He would be there all night. The man in the parked car was gone by the time Paulina arrived on Saturday morning. But Alara saw the cigarette butts on the sidewalk where he had been. 7 of them, stubbed out in a small, neat row in the gutter, like a little calendar of somebody's patience. She counted them while she waited for the sedan to pull up, and she understood, standing there in the cold October air with a canvas bag slung over her shoulder, that her life had changed in a way she was not going to be able to reverse, and that some part of her had known it would and had come anyway. Paulina did not mention the cigarette butts, but when Alara got into the car, Paulina looked at her in the rearview mirror and said, "There was someone across the street last night, Miss Quinn." "I know. I thought you should know that I know." "Thank you." "He was not one of ours." "I assumed." "Mr. Arzu has a person at your door now, from this morning. He'll stay until we've got you moved." "I didn't ask for that." "No, ma'am. Mr. Arzu put him there anyway." Alara watched the city go past the window. The light at that hour was thin and gray, and the street vendors were just setting up, and everything looked ordinary in the way that things look ordinary when you have only just realized you are no longer ordinary yourself. "Paulina." "Yes, ma'am." "How long have you driven for him?" 11 years. "Is he—" She stopped. She did not know the right way to finish the question. Paulina let the silence sit for a moment. Then she said, "He is not a good man, Miss Quinn. I don't say that unkindly. He is not a good man in the way the world counts good men. He has done things he cannot undo, and he knows it, and he carries it. But he is the kind of man who, when I had a daughter sick in the hospital 7 years ago and I did not have the money for the treatment, came into the hospital at 3 in the morning, paid the whole bill in cash, and told the nurse not to tell me it had been him. And then he never mentioned it. I mentioned it. He said I was mistaken. He said it must have been a mix-up at billing. That is the kind of not good man he is. I don't know if that helps you. I thought it might. It helps. He's not going to hurt you, Miss Quinn. Not in any way he can help." "I know." "Good." The drive out to the hills was quiet. Alara leaned her head against the cool glass of the window and watched the bridge come up and slide beneath them. She thought about what she was going to teach him. She had spent most of the night thinking about it. She had started 3 times to write a plan on a piece of paper, and 3 times she had crumpled the paper up. A plan was the wrong thing. What he needed was not a plan. What he needed was a series of small, stupid, difficult things, done in a certain order that would together amount to something he could not have gotten any other way. She knew how to give him those things. She had, in her own way, been given them once. The house looked different in daylight. The slate roof was a soft, mossy green where the shade fell, and the stone walls had a patchwork look to them, as if they had been added to over several generations by people with different ideas of what the house should be. The garden was brown and going to sleep. Nikolai met her at the door in a gray wool sweater with a hole at the elbow. "The room's ready," he said. "Top of the stairs, turn right, all the way to the end. He's already up there." "How long has he been up there?" "Since 6. "Is he nervous?" Nikolai considered that. "He is not a man I would normally describe as nervous," he said. "Today I might use the word. I wouldn't bring it up." "I won't. I'll bring tea up in an hour, coffee if you'd rather." "Tea is fine." The staircase was narrow and creaked in 3 places. Alara made a note of the creaks. The hallway at the top was lined with photographs in dark wood frames, most of them black and white, most of them of people she did not recognize. A young woman in a garden, a boy on a horse, 2 men in fishing waders standing in a river with a huge dark fish between them. She stopped, for a second, at a photograph of a tall, thin man with a narrow face and sharp eyes, standing on the steps of a courthouse. The man looked like Adrian, a version of Adrian, maybe 20 years older than the one downstairs, or maybe Adrian's father. She did not ask. The room at the end of the hall was exactly what he had said it was. Wide pine floorboards, old, sanded smooth by years of feet. One wall was all windows, looking out over the slope of the lawn. The opposite wall was blank, painted a soft, chalky white, and had a long, low bench pushed up against it. In the corner, on a small table, sat a record player, not a modern one, but an old wood-cased machine with a brass horn, and next to it, a stack of LPs. Adrian was standing at the window with his hands in his pockets. He was in a plain, dark, long-sleeve shirt and soft black trousers, and he was barefoot, which surprised her, until she realized she had asked, over the phone the night before, for him to come to this barefoot. Good morning, he said. Good morning. I don't know where to stand. That's a good start. He turned. He did not smile exactly, but something at the corner of his eyes changed. Elara, I want to, before we start, I want to say one thing. Go on. I've been thinking about what you said yesterday, about ruining your life. You were right. I owe you an apology that is not going to be enough. I am not going to try and make it enough with words. I am going to try and make it enough with what I do. I want you to know that I heard you. That's all. She watched him for a long moment. Then she set her bag down on the bench. All right, she said. Take off the shirt. He blinked. I need to see your shoulders. Not that. I need to see how you stand. I need to see where your weight lives. You can keep the shirt on if you want. I can work around it, but it will be easier if I can see you. All right. He unbuttoned the long-sleeve shirt and set it on the bench. Beneath it, he wore a plain white undershirt, the kind of thing her father used to wear to work under his uniform. She had not expected that. She had expected something more considered, something worn by a man who thought about being looked at. What she saw was a man who had dressed the way men dress when they are going to be asked to do something physical and do not want their clothes to be interesting. What she also saw was a body marked by a life, a long pink scar under his left collarbone, old healed, a smaller, more recent mark on his right forearm, a puckered circle the size of a nickel, which she did not need to ask about to recognize. A long, thin, silvery line that ran from just above his right wrist up toward the inside of his elbow. Thin, clean, a knife, not a surgeon. She looked at his hands. The right one, in the light from the windows, had a small tremor that came and went. Adrian. Yes. I'm going to say things to you in this room that I would not say to you outside it. You're going to let me say them. You're not going to take them personally. Do you understand? I understand. If I say something that crosses a line you have, you say red, and I'll stop. You don't have to explain. You just say red. Red. That easy. That easy. All right. Stand in the middle of the floor, feet together, arms at your sides. Look at the wall across from you. Don't look at me. He did. She walked around him slowly, the way a trainer walks around a horse. She did not touch him. She looked at his shoulders. She looked at the way his weight settled. Too far forward. A touch. The way men's weight settles when they have spent their lives getting ready to move first. She looked at his neck. She looked at the way his head sat on his neck. She looked at the small way his shoulders did not match. The right one a shade higher than the left. A compensation for something. An old injury or an old habit. How long have you been holding your right shoulder up like that? I wasn't aware I was. Since the scar under the collarbone, I'd guess. Your body decided it needed to protect that side and it never got the message that the fight was over. He was silent. Adrian, I'm listening. I want you to close your eyes. He closed them. Don't fall over. Just close your eyes and breathe and tell me where you feel your weight. A pause. My feet. Where on your feet? The balls of my feet. Yes, that's where men like you live. You live there because you need to be ready to move at any moment. That is a useful place to live for the work you do. It is a terrible place to live in the rest of your life because it means your body never gets to rest. Never. Not for a second. Your body is exhausted, Adrian. That's one of the things your hand is telling you. Open your eyes. He opened them. We are going to teach your weight to move back. Into your heels. Just a little. Not tonight. Tonight, you are just going to stand there and you are going to breathe and you are going to feel your weight. And when I tell you to, you are going to move it back by millimeters and see what that feels like. That's the whole lesson for the first half hour. That's the lesson. That's the lesson. I can do that. You think you can do that. Most men can't. They get bored. Their minds start hunting for something harder to do because harder is more flattering. Boring is the lesson. If you get through this half hour without needing to say something clever to me, you will already have done something most men in your line of work can't do. He almost smiled. Noted. She stood against the wall and watched him. He stood in the middle of the floor and breathed. In the first minute, he was performing. She could see it, the small flex of the calf, the adjustment of the chin, the way he was standing for her. By the fourth minute, the performance started to leak. His shoulders came down by 1/4 of an inch. By the 7th minute, his hands, which had been loose at his sides, curled very slightly and then uncurled. He was going somewhere. He was getting bored. Good. Now, she said quietly, move your weight into your heels. A little. Not all the way. Just let it fall back. He did. He wobbled slightly. He corrected. Don't correct. Wobble. Let your body find it. Your body knows what to do if you stop managing it. He wobbled again, smaller this time. He found the place. Good. Now breathe. In for 4, out for 6. 4 in, 6 out. It was her mother's count. She had not told him where the count had come from. She did not intend to. 10 minutes in, she saw his right hand start to tremble. He saw her see it. His jaw tightened. Don't fight it, she said. Don't. Look at your hand. Look at it the way you would look at somebody else's hand. It isn't you. It's a hand. Your hand is doing what it needs to do. Your job right now is to breathe, not to fix. I'm not used to not fixing. I know. It's unbearable. I know. The tremor increased. For a moment, he looked like he might say something. His mouth opened, then closed. He breathed. 4 in, 6 out. The tremor peaked, held, and then, almost imperceptibly, began to subside. Not to nothing, but to less. There, she said. There what? That's the first thing. You don't need to do anything else today. That's the whole lesson. Alara. What? That was 20 minutes of standing in a room and my hand stopped shaking more than it has stopped in 6 months. You're telling me that is the whole lesson? I am telling you that is the whole lesson for today. There are maybe 40 more lessons. Some of them are harder. Some of them are easier. This is the one you needed first. Put your shirt on. We're done for the morning. It's been 40 minutes. I know. I'm paying you $20,000 a month to work 40 minutes a morning. You're paying me $20,000 a month to know when to stop. If I worked you for 3 hours the first day, you'd feel better and your hand would be worse tomorrow. This is the job. Put your shirt on. He put his shirt on. He buttoned it slowly, watching her the whole time. What happens now? He asked. Now we have tea and then Paulina takes me home and I come back this afternoon and we do 40 minutes again. And then tomorrow morning we do it again. And then we start to add to it. Add what? Weight shifting, walking, eventually movement to music, eventually contact. You're going to need to let another person put their hands on you in a controlled way without your body treating it as a threat. That's a long way off. We don't need to talk about it today. And the tremor? The tremor is not the thing we are treating. The tremor is the symptom. We are treating the body underneath the tremor. If we do it right, the tremor gets quieter over weeks, and eventually it goes away most of the time. If we do it wrong, or if what you have is more than what I think you have, we will find out, and I will tell you, and we will stop. That's fair? Tea. They went downstairs. Nikolai had set the tea out in the kitchen on a scarred wooden table that must have been 100 years old and had rings burned into it by decades of mugs. Adrian sat. Alara sat. Nikolai poured for both of them, set the pot down, and went out of the room without saying anything, in a way that communicated, without ceremony, that he had decided they were, for the moment, fine. They drank their tea. Can I ask you something? Adrian said. You can ask. Who taught you to count breaths? She looked down at her tea. She did not answer immediately. She had not expected the question, and she had not prepared a lie for it. In the absence of a lie, the truth came out. My mother. Is she living? No. I'm sorry. 11 years. How? Breast cancer. It was fast, 9 months, start to finish. You were 16. Who raised you after? Myself, mostly. My father, he did what he could. He is a difficult man. He drank. He's stopped now. We don't talk. I have a sister in Portland. We don't talk either. You know this. You read my file. I said I wouldn't. You already did. I'm sorry about that too. Stop apologizing for things. All right. She looked at him across the table. Sunlight was coming in through the kitchen window, hitting the side of his face. He looked in that light like a very tired man who had been handed something he did not know what to do with. Your turn, she said. My turn. Tell me something. What? Anything. Something that isn't in a file. He thought about it. I can't play the piano. The piano in your library. Yes. You have sheet music on it. It was my mother's piano. She played. I don't. I have been telling myself for 20 years that I will learn to play it. I have never once sat down on the bench. I have sheet music on it because if I got rid of it, I would have to admit I was never going to learn, and I am not yet prepared to do that." She laughed softly. It surprised her. "That's a very human thing," she said. "I'm told I am a human." "By whom?" "Nikolai, mostly, on good days." They sat in the kitchen in the sunlight for a long moment. The tea cooled. Outside somewhere, a crow was making a long, complaining sound in the cypress trees. Inside, Elara Quinn watched Adrian Voss drink his tea and realized, somewhere in a part of herself she was not prepared to examine, that she was already in deeper than the $20,000 had promised. She was not sure yet that she minded. That afternoon, she came back and they did it again. 40 minutes in the upstairs room, standing, breathing, moving the weight to the heels. The tremor came and held and softened. He did not ask if that was all, this time. He knew it was all. On Sunday, the pattern repeated. On Monday, it repeated. By Wednesday, she had added 2 small things. A slow swing of the arms, loose, from the shoulder, not a dance, something closer to what a prize fighter does at the end of a fight to let the blood go back where it belongs. And a walk. Just a walk, the length of the room and back, with her watching his feet. He walked, the first time, like a man used to walking into rooms. By Friday, he was walking like a man used to being in a room. It was not a big difference. It was, to her eye, everything. She did not go home between mornings and afternoons. There was no time. Paulina drove her back and forth the first 2 days, and on the third day, Nikolai showed her a room at the back of the house. A small guest room with a narrow bed, a washstand, a window looking out onto the garden, and said, without ceremony, "If you want." She wanted. On Friday afternoon, after the second lesson, she came downstairs to find Nikolai in the kitchen with a laptop open on the table. He closed it when she came in, not fast enough that she missed it, but fast enough to mean he had intended for her not to see. "What was that?" she said. "Don't worry about it." "Nikolai?" He sighed. He opened the laptop again. He turned it around. The page on the screen was an online gossip site, the kind of thing that covered the entertainment industry and the lower-tier wealthy with equal appetite. The headline was "Fallen Ballerina's Secret Life. Exclusive." There was a photograph of her. It was the hospital photograph, the one from when she was 23. Next to it was a photograph of her leaving the Valerium. Next to that, a photograph of the Harrow Opera House. She read the headline. She did not touch the screen. She did not sit down. When? An hour ago. How bad? Bad enough. They've got the surgery. They've got a quote from somebody who says they were your roommate during the recovery. They've got... He hesitated. They've got a story about why you were let go from the Harrow. It isn't the right story, but it's a story. What story? A drug story. I don't take drugs. I know. I have never taken drugs. I know, Elara. That isn't why I was let go. I know. I was let go because after the surgery, my left ankle never came all the way back, and they had a 20-year-old who could do the Giselle variation in her sleep, and the company didn't need 2 Giselles, and I wasn't the one they needed. That's why I was let go. There were no drugs. I know. Who planted it? I don't know yet. I have ideas. I'll know by tonight. You should sit down. She sat down. Her hands, on the edge of the table, were white at the knuckles. Where is he? In the library. Does he know? Not yet. Don't tell him yet. Elara. Give me 10 minutes, Nikolai. I have to think. Give me 10 minutes. 10 minutes. She went out the back door of the kitchen into the garden. The air was cold. There were dead tomato stalks along the side of the house, and she walked past them and down the slope of the lawn to the low stone wall at the back of the property. And she stood with her hands on the wall and looked out over the hills. And she did not cry, because she had not cried about anything since the afternoon her mother had been put in the ground, and she was not about to start now for a gossip site. What she did instead was get angry. She had not been angry, she realized, in years. Not properly. Not in a useful way. She had been sad and tired and afraid and resigned, and all the gray shades of giving up that you arrive at when your life comes apart in a way you can't fix. But angry, Angry required that you believe somewhere underneath everything that you were owed something. She had stopped believing she was owed anything sometime around 24. It was surprising to discover that the belief had not died. It had only been waiting. When she walked back into the kitchen, she was steady. "Take me to him," she said. Adrian was at his desk in the library. He looked up when she came in and saw her face and stood. "What's happened?" "Nikolai is going to show you. I'm not going to read it again. Show him." Nikolai opened the laptop on the desk and turned it toward Adrian. Adrian read. His face did not change. His hand on the corner of the desk did not tremble. She watched his hand specifically because she had learned to watch it, and she saw that it was very still. The stillness of a man doing something with the tremor other than letting it happen. He was suppressing it. She did not know, yet, how he was suppressing it. She filed the observation away. He finished reading. He closed the laptop. "This is Salamanca," he said. "Are you sure?" "No, but this is the shape she likes. Drugs, a quiet surgery, a roommate who turns out to be fake or turns out to be real and paid off. She has a journalist she uses. I can find out tonight if this is the journalist. And if it is, then I know who we are fighting. And if you know who we are fighting," he looked at her. "What do you want, Elara?" he said. "What? What do you want? Tell me what you want and I'll do it. You've been threatened, your name has been put through something you did not deserve. You are in this mess because of me. Tell me what you want, and I will do it." "I don't want her hurt." "Fine. I don't want any of this solved with somebody dead." "Fine. You can say that easily. I can say it because I thought about it before you came in. I had already decided that. If you had asked me to, I would have said no. You're not asking, so it's easy to say. What can you do without anyone dead?" "A great deal. Salamanca has money and influence and a lot of fear under both. The thing you do to a person like that is not violence. The thing you do is make the fear come true. You find the things she has been covering up and you let them see daylight. You find the people she has been paying to stay quiet and you make them stop being quiet. You do not do this in a week, and you do not do this cheaply, and you do not do this without patience. I have all three of those things. You retract the story first. The retraction does not undo the damage, but it changes the shape of it. Then you get ahead of the story with a story of your own. Then we keep going. This will take 6 months. Is that all right?" 6 months. "Yes. I have 11 days until rent." "Your rent is handled. I'd said that already. It's moved. There's an apartment for you on Farrier Street above a bookshop. The whole top floor. It's in a building I own through 3 layers. Nobody can trace me to it. You can move in tomorrow if you want. Nikolai has the keys. This is a separate thing from the lessons. It was part of the deal." "I remember the deal. Then this part is just paperwork." "Adrian." "Yes. I want to retract it. I want to make them retract it. Not you. Me. I want the statement to come from me. I want my name on it." "All right. I want to talk to the journalist. She will not take your call. Then I want to talk to whoever she works for." "All right. I want it done by Monday." "Monday is aggressive." "Monday." He looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Monday," he said. She realized, standing in the library in front of his desk, that she was shaking. Not a small tremor. A large one, through the whole body. The kind she had not had since she was 16 and had been told her mother's test results were worse than the doctors had hoped. She had not shaken like that in many years. She had not let herself. Adrian saw it. He did not say anything. He did not move. He stood on the other side of his desk and waited. "Don't touch me," she said, not because he was trying to, but because she needed to say it out loud. "I won't. Don't come near me for a minute. I won't." She stood in the middle of the library and she put her arms around herself, and she held on to her own shoulders, and she breathed. 4 in, 6 out. The shaking slowed, did not stop, slowed. She walked to the window. She put her hand on the glass. It was cold. She breathed. "Okay," she said. "Okay? Okay. I'm okay. Do you want Paulina to take you home?" "No, I want to stay here tonight." "All right." "In the guest room?" "Yes, I know. I want Nikolai to set up. I want a lock on the inside of the guest room door that only I have a key to. If you don't have that, I want him to drive somewhere and buy it tonight and install it tonight. Done. And I want, she turned around, I want to see your right hand. He held out his right hand. It was trembling. Good, she said. Good. If you had been suppressing it this whole time, I was going to be angry. Let it shake. Let yourself be afraid. You don't have to perform for me, Adrian. Ever. That's part of the deal, too. He lowered his hand. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For saying that. She nodded. She walked out of the library and down the hall and up the narrow, creaking stairs and into the guest room at the back of the house. And she closed the door behind her and she sat on the edge of the narrow bed. And for the second time in her adult life, she did cry. Briefly, quietly, into her own hands. Because it turned out she had a little crying left in her after all. Nikolai downstairs was already on the phone. Yeah, he was saying. Yeah, tonight. I don't care what it costs. I don't care what time it is. I want the name of the person who ran that piece and the person above her and the person above that person on my desk by midnight. And I want a locksmith at this house in the next hour. A keyed deadbolt interior installation, and the only set of keys gets given to Miss Quinn. He listened. I don't care, he said. If he's asleep, wake him up. Tell him Arzu is asking. He hung up. He stood in the kitchen in the early dark of a Friday evening in October, and he looked out the window at the hills. Then he got a bottle of bourbon down from the shelf above the stove, and he poured 2 glasses, and he took them down the hall to the library, and he set one on Adrian's desk, and he sat down in the chair across from him without being asked. Drink, he said. Adrian drank. You all right? No. Good. I'd be worried if you were. They sat in the firelight. Outside the wind was picking up, and the first real cold of the season was coming down out of the hills and into the city, and in a penthouse 40 stories above the river, Victoria Salamanca was watching the number of views on the gossip piece climb, very slowly, because the piece had not been up long, and she was smiling to herself because she did not yet know that by Monday morning it was going to be gone. The piece was gone from the internet by 10 on Saturday morning, which, even by the standards of the favors Nikolai was capable of calling in, was fast. The retraction went up on the same site by noon. It was a short retraction, 3 paragraphs long, stiff and careful in the way those things always were, and it apologized to Miss Alara Quinn for an error in editorial judgment, and it did not use the word drugs, and it did not use the word surgery, and it did not say where the story had come from. Alara read it on Nikolai's laptop, in the kitchen, with a cup of black coffee going cold in front of her. That's it, she said. That's it. That's not enough. I know. People already saw the first one. I know, Alara. It's a start. It's not the finish. We said 6 months. I want to write something myself. Write it. Who will print it? I'll find someone who will. Give me a name you trust. She thought about it. Delia Mendez at the Tribune. She wrote a piece about a friend of mine 3 years ago, and she got it right. She didn't use my friend's name when my friend asked her not to. She didn't have to. She did. I'll reach out this afternoon. Tell her I want to speak, on the record, whatever she wants to ask. Whatever she wants to ask? Whatever she wants to ask. Alara, I know what I'm saying, Nikolai. I've been a ghost for 8 months. I've been invisible on a box. If they're going to make me a story, I'm going to be the one who tells it. Nikolai nodded slowly and picked up his phone. She did not move into the apartment above the bookshop that weekend, because the weekend turned into a week of small, fast, ugly things that happened one after the other, the way weather happens when a system settles in over a city and refuses to move. On Sunday morning, somebody poured red paint across the front door of her apartment on Verity Street. Nikolai's man on the door had been pulled off, just for an hour, to help the locksmith with something at the house, and in that hour, the paint had come. It was on the doorframe, on the welcome mat she had stolen from a rental 7 years ago, on the little square of carpet in the hallway. There were no words in the paint, just the paint itself, a message too literal to need a sentence. They knew I wasn't there, Alara said when Nikolai told her. Yes, they knew. How? I don't know yet. I will. Was it Salamanca? Probably. And the man across the street from my door the first night, was that her? No, that was Vega. He's been watching.
Vega is not coming at me, though.
Not yet. Vega is watching because he's deciding. Salamanca is moving because she has already decided. Those are two different problems. Vega is the bigger one, long term. Salamanca is the louder one now. Nikolai. Yes. If she's already decided, what does she think she's going to do? Nikolai thought about the question carefully. He was in the kitchen, peeling a pear with a small knife, and he kept peeling while he answered, his eyes on his hands. She thinks she's going to break Mr. Voss through you, he said. She watched the tape from the Valerium. She's seen it by now. We should assume she has a copy. She saw what you did on that floor, and she saw his hand, and she saw him put his money on the table. She does not think you are... He stopped, searching for the right word. She does not think you are a fling. She thinks you are a leash, and she has decided that if she cannot kill him, which she cannot at the moment, without starting a war she does not want, she can make the leash so painful to hold that he lets go of it. Or she can make you hate him. Either one works, for her. You walk away, or he pushes you away to protect you. She doesn't care which. And if neither of those things happens, then she comes for you more directly. How directly? Directly enough that I'd rather not finish the sentence. Alara was quiet for a long moment. I'm not going to walk away, she said. I know. And he is not going to push me away. I know that too. So we make her stop. We make her either too busy with her own problems to pay attention to you, or we make her realize the cost of continuing is higher than the cost of stopping, or we take her off the board. Mr. Voss has agreed to the first two. The third one is not what was asked for, and I'm not going to bring it up. Good. Good. He finished peeling the pear and cut it in quarters and slid the plate toward her. She ate a piece without thinking about it. It was very cold and very sweet. She remembered suddenly that she had not eaten a piece of fresh fruit in about 3 weeks. She went upstairs to the room at the end of the hall, where Adrian was already waiting. They did not talk about the paint. She worked him that morning the way she had been working him for 10 days. The standing, the breathing, the weight shifting, the slow, loose swinging of the arms. She added one thing, a small pivot, left and right, on the balls of the feet, slow, like a man half remembering how to turn around. It was not dance, it was the ghost of dance, the thing that lives in the bone before the music comes in. Halfway through, his right hand began to tremble, and he let it, and it slowed and held and faded. Better this morning, she said. I feel better. I don't know if that's real. It's real. Your shoulders came down yesterday. They're down again today. That isn't a trick of mine. That's your body deciding. Alara. Yes. I heard about the paint. I don't want to talk about the paint. All right. We are not going to talk about her in this room. This room is where we do the other thing. The room downstairs is for Salamanca. I do not want her in here. Do you understand? I understand. Good. They finished the lesson. He put his shirt back on. They went downstairs. Nikolai had made eggs. They ate the eggs. Delia Mendez will see you Wednesday, Nikolai said, pouring coffee. Her office, 2:00. She said 30 minutes. She's booked solid. She asked me if this was a puff piece. I told her it was not. She said she was interested. She's not on Salamanca's payroll. I checked. Thank you. She said bring the story. She'll decide if it's a story. She'll decide it's a story. Alara spent Sunday afternoon writing. Not the story itself. She was not going to give Delia Mendez a prepared monologue, but an inventory. A list of things she was going to have to be ready to be asked about. The surgery, the harrow, the failures, the father, the sister, the Valerium, the night she had met Adrian, the dance, the tremor. No, not the tremor. She was not going to talk about the tremor on the record. That was his story to tell, or not tell, and she was not going to take it from him. But everything else she was going to have ready. She wrote in the little guest room at the back of the house, with the window open a crack because she had always written best when the air was cold. She used a yellow legal pad and a pencil. At one point, Adrian knocked softly, and when she said, "Come in," he stood in the doorway with 2 mugs of tea and did not come any further. Tea. Thank you. Working? Writing a list. A list of what? A list of the worst things a journalist could ask me. He thought about that for a second. Can I? He said. Can I ask what's on it? No. All right. Not because I don't want you to know, because I don't want to have them be things I've said out loud to anyone before I say them to her. If I say them first to you, I'll say them better to her, and better will sound rehearsed. I want it to come out rough lands. Rehearsed doesn't. That's smart. I know. He set one mug on the little table by the door, nodded, and walked back down the hall. He did not try to extend the conversation. She appreciated that about him, more than she had yet let herself tell him. He had learned, fast, how to leave her alone when she needed to be alone. Not many men ever learned that at all. Tuesday night was when the worst thing happened, which in a week of ugly things was saying something. She was in the upstairs room at the end of the afternoon session. Adrian had gone down to take a call. She was alone, winding down the record player, when her phone rang. It was a number she did not recognize. She almost didn't answer. She answered. Miss Quinn? Yes. This is Rana at Mrs. Lindqvist's. Mrs. Lindqvist was her landlady. Mrs. Lindqvist was an 80-year-old Swedish woman who made apple cake on Saturdays and had not raised the rent on Alar's apartment in 3 years. Rena was her granddaughter. Rena, is she all right? She's upstairs. She's fine. She's in her apartment. Miss Quinn, there's been a fire. Here, in the building. In your apartment. The fire department has it out now. It didn't spread, I don't think. I'm downstairs. It's... Rena, slow down.
I don't know what to tell you. The door to your apartment was open. The paint was gone.
Somebody had cleaned up the paint. And then the fire started about an hour ago. They think it started in the kitchen. The firemen are still here. They want to talk to you. I have them on the phone. They're waiting. Can I put one of them on? Yes. She listened. She did not sit down because there was nowhere in the upstairs room to sit down. The fireman was polite and patient. The fire had started in the apartment, he said. It had been contained to the apartment, more or less. There had been damage to the hallway and to the ceiling of the apartment below, which was empty at the moment, thank God, because the neighbor was visiting her sister in Maine. There had been no injuries. The cause was, as far as he could tell, electrical. Something in the kitchen. He would have more information tomorrow. They would need her to come and assess at some point when she was able.
Yes, she said. Yes, I understand. She hung up. She stood in the middle of the upstairs room. The tremor that had been in her hands on Friday in Adrian's library came back into her hands, and this time it did not stay in her hands. It went up her arms and into her shoulders and into her chest, and it sat in her chest like a second heartbeat, a fast one, a wrong one. She breathed, 4 in, 6 out. She walked slowly down the stairs and along the hallway, past the photographs of people who might or might not have been his family, and into the library. Adrian was at the window. He was on the phone. He saw her face and said to the phone in a voice she had not heard from him before, "I'll call you back," and hung up. Elara. My building was on fire. What? An hour ago. The fire department is still there. They said it was electrical. It wasn't electrical. No. She cleaned up the paint, Adrian. The person, whoever she sent. They cleaned up the paint first, so nobody would look at the fire and think the two things were connected. Yes. She wants it to look like an accident. She wants me to know she can do it, but she wants it to look like an accident to everyone else, so nobody has to take sides. Yes. Are you surprised? No. Neither am I. She sat down in one of the leather chairs by the fire. He crossed the room and sat in the other. He did not offer her anything. He did not move to touch her. He sat there and he waited. Adrian. Yes. I want to tell you something, and I need you to listen to it without interrupting. All right. I'm not going to walk away. I want you to understand that I'm not going to walk away. I don't want you to plan for me walking away. I don't want you to plan for me being scared off. It is not going to happen. Not because I am brave. I am not brave. I am very frightened right now. I am telling you that I'm not going to walk away because I have already, in my life, walked away from one thing I loved. I walked away from dance when they let me go. And I could have gone back to a smaller company in a smaller city. I could have gone back and kept dancing at a lower altitude, and I did not, because I was humiliated, and I told myself I was protecting something by leaving. I was not protecting anything. I was running. I spent 8 months on a box. I will not run again.
Do you understand what I am telling you?
I understand. I am telling you this because in a minute, you are going to start trying to figure out how to get me out of this for my own good. You're going to tell yourself that you owe me that. You don't. You don't get to make that decision for me. If you try to make it for me, I will leave, and that will be the first time I walk away from something I want in 11 years, and it will not be because she scared me. It will be because you tried to. I hear you. Say it back to me.
I am not going to send you away. I'm not going to decide for you what risk you get to take. I'm going to let you stay, and I am going to protect you as hard as I can, and I am not going to confuse those two things. All right, Elara. Yes. I'm going to have to do something now that is not something you like.
What? I'm going to move you out of the apartment on Farrier Street before you've even moved in. It was the right apartment an hour ago. It isn't the right apartment now. There's a building I own on Lantana Avenue, a better building. The third floor is mine. Nobody in the building knows it is mine. The security is not security. It looks like nothing, but it is something. I want you in there by tomorrow morning. Your things, what's left of them, are already being moved.
Nikolai sent people an hour ago. I didn't ask him to.
No, I did. When the call came in from Rena, it came through Nikolai first, and Nikolai sent people while you were still upstairs. I'm telling you now because you asked me not to make decisions for you, and this one was already made before you finished the sentence. I want you to know what was done and why, and I want you to tell me if I should not have done it. She looked at him. Her tremor had slowed, she realized. Some part of her mind had registered that the thing being done about the apartment was competent, and the competence had taken some of the edge off the fear. You should have done it, she said after a moment. Don't do it again without telling me. But you should have done it. All right. Thank you. Don't. She laughed once, a small tired laugh. It really does irritate you when I thank you. It does. Why?
Because you should not be in a position where you have to.
They sat there. The fire moved. Somewhere in the house, a clock chimed 7. Nikolai came in, quietly, and put a plate of bread and cheese and some sliced apples on the low table between them, and went out. Neither of them ate. Adrian. Yes. Tell me what happened 6 months ago. He looked at her. Tonight? Tonight. All right.
He was quiet for a long time. He was looking at the fire.
When he spoke, his voice was lower and rougher than she had heard it before, and she realized, with a small shock, that she had not actually ever heard him say more than a few sentences in a row about himself. There was a man, he said. His name was Matteo. He was my second, before Nikolai was my second. He had been with me since I was 22. He was my closest friend. I want you to understand that word, friend. I do not have many of them. I never have. He was one, maybe the one. He was at my wedding. I was at his wedding. Our wives, his wife and mine, were friends in their own right. When my marriage ended, Matteo was the person I spent that summer with, the summer it ended. I slept on his couch for 2 weeks. He did not ask me to talk about it, and he did not ask me to stop drinking, and he did not ask me to do anything except sit on his couch and watch baseball and eat the food his wife made. He saved my life that summer in a real way. I mean that the way people mean it when they mean it. All right, 2 years ago, almost 3 now, Matteo started, I don't know what to call it. He started wanting things I did not want for us. Our business had grown. He wanted it to grow more. He wanted us to move into areas I had told him for 10 years I would not move into. Drugs in particular, but other things. He wanted a war with Salamanca that I was not willing to have. Because I believed, and I still believe, that a war with Salamanca kills a lot of people who should not die. I told him no. Once, then again, then a third time, then a fourth. He did not hear me. He heard me, I should say. He did not accept me. He began to think of me as a man who was holding him back from something he deserved. I learned about this slowly, over months, the way you learn about someone you love changing. The signs were all small. His wife stopped calling my wife. He stopped coming over for dinner. He started traveling to places he did not have business in. He began to have meetings I was not invited to. I thought it was temporary. I hoped it was. It wasn't. What happened? 6 months ago. 6 months. 1 week, 3 days ago. I was invited to a dinner. It was a dinner at a house I owned, out on the lake. A family house. I had lived there as a boy. I was told it was a meeting with 2 men from out of the country who wanted to do a certain kind of business with us. Matteo set it up. Nikolai did not like the meeting. Nikolai had said, for the whole week, something is wrong with this. I did not listen. I went to the meeting alone, which is to say with only Matteo, because I trusted him more than I trusted Nikolai's instincts. I want you to understand that. I chose him over Nikolai, who has never been wrong about a man in 30 years. I chose him. Adrian, it wasn't a meeting. It was 6 men in the kitchen of the lake house. Not 2 as I'd been told. 6. They were not there to do business. They were there to kill me. Matteo had sold me to them. They worked for Salamanca. I found out later she paid Matteo $7 million, which I find that funny. I find it funny because Matteo was worth more than $7 million. Much more. He did it for less than I would have given him if he'd only asked. He did it for the principle of the thing. He wanted to be the one who took me out. He did not want to do it himself, so he sold the chance. What happened? Nikolai had followed me against my orders. He had been in the woods behind the house for 2 hours, watching the driveway. When the first of the 6 men came at me with a knife, Nikolai came through the back door. I had a gun in my jacket. I had not touched it in 6 years. I shot 2 of them. Nikolai killed 3 more. The last one got me. He lifted his right sleeve, showed her the puckered circle on his forearm. He put a bullet through me before Matteo put a knife through him. That's the part I don't know what to do with. Matteo killed him. Matteo killed the last man. I think it was reflex. I think when it came to it, and he actually saw me bleeding on the kitchen floor, something in him. I don't know. I will never know. Matteo ran after. Nikolai found him in a motel 3 days later. Matteo did not fight. He asked Nikolai to come over to the bed, and he asked Nikolai to tell me he was sorry, and then he asked Nikolai if he would mind turning around for a minute, and Nikolai said no, he would not turn around, and Matteo shot himself anyway. She was very still. I'm sorry, she said. Don't. Adrian. The tremor started about 3 weeks after that night. I thought at first it was the gunshot wound. It wasn't. The nerve damage from the wound is a different thing. It's in a different place. The tremor is me. The tremor is my body, remembering that the last time I had to command a room, I was in a kitchen with the person I trusted most in the world, and he was helping 6 men try to put me in the ground. My body does not know, yet, that this is not happening every time I walk into a room. My mind knows. My body does not know. That is what we are working on, you and I. Do you understand now? I understand. I have told this to Nikolai, who was there, and I have now told it to you. That is the entire list of people who have heard that version of it. I know. I don't know why I've told you. Yes, you do. He looked at her. Yes, he said quietly. I do. She did not move. He did not move. The fire popped. A long time went by, maybe a minute, maybe 3. Neither of them spoke. I should go to bed, she said, finally. Yes. Tomorrow we move me. Yes. Tomorrow I see Delia Mendez on Wednesday. Tomorrow I walk through the apartment on Verity Street, whatever's left of it, and I figure out what I have and what I don't. Tomorrow I work you for 40 minutes in the upstairs room. We do what we were doing. Yes. We do not talk about this in there. No. Good night, Adrian. Good night. She stood up. She did not touch him. She walked out of the library and down the hall and up the stairs. In the little guest room, she sat on the edge of the narrow bed for a long time without taking her clothes off. Eventually, she lay down on her side, on top of the blanket, and she closed her eyes, and she did not sleep for a while. And then she did. In the library, Adrian sat in his chair and looked at the fire. After a long time, Nikolai came in. Nikolai did not say anything. He sat in the chair Alara had sat in. He put his bourbon on the table and he put his hands on his knees and he waited. I told her, Adrian said eventually. I know, I was in the kitchen. You heard. I heard. And I think it is good that you told her. I think you should have told her sooner.
I think it was going to come out one way or another, and I think it is better that it came out like this, in your own voice, than at a moment you did not choose. Nikolai. Yes. Is there anyone following her tonight? 2 men, one on the road, one at the gate. Paulina is in her car with the engine on outside. Nobody's coming in here tonight. Nobody's coming near her tonight. Good. The fire at Verity Street. I have a name. Already. Tell me. Vince Kozak. Used to work arson for an insurance grift out of the docks. Went independent 4 years ago. Salamanca keeps him on a retainer. I've had him watched for 3 years. He lit the match. He's the one who came in and mopped up the paint first. He's back at his apartment tonight, Adrian. I have 2 people outside his building. I have not told them to do anything yet. That's your call. Adrian was quiet. Not tonight, he said. All right. I told her no one dead. I meant it. All right. But I want Kozak picked up. Not hurt. Picked up. I want to talk to him. I want him to tell me everything he knows about Salamanca's household, her habits, her real estate, her quiet money, every goddamn thing he's ever heard, while her people were too comfortable with him in the room. And then I want him out of the city, and I want him to know that if he comes back or if he reaches out to her in any way, the things I did not do to him tonight will begin. That's how we use him. Not a body. A source. When? Tomorrow night. All right. And Nikolai? Yes. Find me the journalist, the one who ran the piece, not Delia Mendez, the first one, the one Salamanca uses. I want to know everything. Her debts, her secrets, her children, what she's afraid of. She has 2 kids, 11 and 8. She's afraid of her ex-husband. He has a restraining order on her. It's a whole thing. You already pulled it. I pulled it this morning. Good. What do you want to do with her? Nothing yet. I want to have her where I can reach her. I don't want to use her unless I have to. All right. They sat in the firelight. Outside, the wind had come down off the hills and into the trees, and the old stone house made the small creaking sounds it made at night, sounds Adrian had grown up with and knew by heart. Adrian. Yes. You're going to have to see Vega. I know. Before Salamanca's next move. He is waiting to see how you handle Salamanca. If you handle her hard, he'll take it as a sign you're still strong and he'll wait. If you handle her soft, he'll come in. You need to see him before then, and you need to see him alone. I know. Not tomorrow, but soon. I know. Take Miss Quinn with you. Adrian looked up. No. Hear me. Don't take her into the room. Take her with you into the building. Let Vega see her in the hall. Let him see her walking beside you. Let him see her with her chin up. Vega does not understand fear, but he understands partnership. If he sees her as a woman you're protecting, he'll press. If he sees her as a woman who is standing next to you because she wants to, he will not press. He will be curious. Curious is not good, but curious is not pressing, and we can work with curious. Adrian was quiet for a long time. I will ask her, he said finally. I will not tell her. I will ask. That's all I meant. Good night, Nikolai. Good night. Nikolai drained his bourbon and walked out. The door clicked softly behind him. Adrian sat alone in the library until the fire burned down to coals. At some point, without deciding to, he got up and walked to the piano in the corner. He sat down on the bench. He put his hands on the keys. Both of them. The right one was steady. He did not know how long it would be steady for. He did not play. He sat on the bench with his hands on the keys, and he looked at the sheet music that had not moved in 20 years. And he thought about a woman asleep in a narrow bed at the back of the house, and a tremor that had, without his noticing it, begun to come less often. He sat there for a long time. Wednesday afternoon came on gray and cold, with a wind that cut down Blackwood Avenue and made the awnings pop. Alara walked into the St. Mercier Tribune building at 2 minutes to 2, wearing the gray wool dress she had worn to the house in the hills, her hair pinned, her mother's pendant tucked under the collar. She had not taken anything with her. No notes, no folder, no rehearsed lines. The list on the yellow legal pad was still in the guest room at the back of Adrian's house, where she had left it 2 nights before, and she had not read it again because she had understood, the moment she picked it up on Tuesday morning, that reading it would make her sound like a person who had read it. Delia Mendez met her at the elevator on the 11th floor. Mendez was a short, square woman in her 50s, with close-cropped gray hair and the weary, attentive eyes of a person who had been lied to professionally for 30 years and had developed, as a result, a deep affection for people who told the truth badly. Miss Quinn. Miss Mendez. Delia, come on. Her office was small and warm and smelled faintly of old paper. There was a plant on the filing cabinet that was either dying or thriving. Laura could not tell which. There were 2 chairs. A recorder sat on the desk between them, already running. I record everything, Delia said. I'm telling you it's on. That way you don't forget. All right. Before we start, I want to be straight with you. I have been approached about you twice this week, once by someone I trust, once by someone I don't. The person I trust is the person I trust. The person I don't is somebody who works, indirectly, for a woman named Victoria Salamanca, although the person asking me didn't say her name. I want you to know that I know that. I want you to know I am not going to write Salamanca's piece for her, and I am not going to write your piece for you. I'm going to write a piece about whatever comes out of this room. If that's not what you came here for, we can stop now, and no hard feelings. That's what I came here for. All right? Ask me whatever you want. Delia watched her for a long moment. You were let go from the Harrow Opera House in March of last year. The story that's circulating is a drug story. Let's start there. The story that's circulating is a lie. I have never taken drugs. Not recreationally, not for injuries, not at parties, not in my life. I was let go because I had a surgery on my left ankle at 23 that didn't heal all the way back, and the company had a younger dancer who could do what I did without the surgery, and the company made a business decision. That's all. It isn't an interesting story. That's why somebody replaced it with a drug story. Drug stories are interesting. You didn't fight the decision. I didn't. Why? I was ashamed. I thought the company was telling me something about myself that was true, and I thought if I fought it, I would be fighting the truth. I was 24. I believed adults when they told me things. I don't believe them as much anymore. The surgery. A torn ligament. I was doing a variation I had done 500 times. I came down wrong on the 501st. There was nothing dramatic about it. I was in a boot for 6 weeks. I did my physical therapy. It didn't come back all the way. You've been working in private clubs. I have. Living statues. Yes. Tell me about that. It pays $300 a night. You stand on a box for 3 hours and you don't move. People touch you sometimes. People do worse than touch you sometimes. You get paid $300. It is a job. I did not love the job. I did it because I needed it. I am telling you this because I am not the only woman doing it in this city, and the women doing it are not villains, and they are not failures, and they are not fallen, and I do not want, when this piece runs, any woman who is doing what I was doing to read it and feel that she has been made into a cautionary tale. We are workers, that's all. Delia made a small note. Adrian Voss? Yes. I'm not going to ask you what he is to you. I'm going to ask you how you met him. I was working at a club downtown on a Thursday night. A man put his hand on me. Mr. Voss told him to take his hand off me. The man took his hand off me. Mr. Voss asked me to dance. We danced once. I went home. The next day his driver came to my apartment, and I went to his house, and we talked, and we came to a professional arrangement that I am not going to detail because it is private, and because it is not illegal, and because you do not need it for your peace. Is he paying you? Yes. For what? For my time, for my expertise. I was a dancer for 17 years. That skill has a market. He is using my skill. I am not going to say more than that. Are you in a romantic relationship with him? No. Do you want to be? A pause. Ilara looked at the recorder, then she looked at Delia Mendez. I'm not going to answer that on a recording, she said. I'll answer it to you off the record if you turn it off. Delia looked at her for a second, then reached over and pressed stop. Off! I don't know what I want with him, Ilara said quietly. I know I am not afraid of him. I know he is a man a lot of other people are afraid of, for reasons I am not going to pretend don't exist. I know he has not, to me, in the 6 weeks I have known him, done anything that would make a woman in my position feel less safe than she was on the night she met him. I know the story the city wants to tell about me and him is a certain kind of story, a soft story about a powerful man and a woman he saved. And I am here today mostly because that story is not true. He did not save me. He interrupted a bad night. I saved myself by going home and counting the money he gave me and deciding what to do with it. That's not a sexy story, but it's the true one. That's what I want on the record. Delia watched her for a long moment. Then she pressed the recorder back on. You're working with him? Yes. And living in an apartment he owns? Temporarily? Yes. Because your previous apartment burned down? Yes. Electrical, the fire report says. The fire report is wrong. On the record? On the record, the fire report is wrong. Somebody set that fire. I am not going to say who. I don't have proof. I have an opinion. I don't put my opinions on the record when I don't have proof. But the fire report is wrong, and the fact that the paint that had been thrown on my door the day before was cleaned up before the fire started is something the fire investigators have not accounted for, and I would like, if you are willing, for you to account for it in your piece. Delia made another note. This one took longer. That's interesting, she said. It's meant to be. All right, last question, and then I'll let you go. What do you want people to know that I haven't asked you yet? Alara thought about that for a long time. She thought about what she was about to say, and she thought about whether she should say it, and she thought about all the ways it could be used against her. Then she said it anyway. I want women in this city to know that the Valerium exists, she said. I want them to know what the work is and what the pay is and what the risks are. I want them to know that Conrad Bellini put his hand on me on the night I met Mr. Voss, and that Mr. Bellini has done the same thing to other women, on other nights, in other rooms, and that nothing ever happens to him about it. I want to say his name out loud in your piece. Conrad Bellini. I want women who end up on a box in that club to know that a person exists who will say his name. That's what I want people to know. Delia looked at her for a long moment. All right, she said. Will you print it? I'll print it. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I haven't written it. The piece ran on Friday morning, on the front of the Tribune's culture section, above the fold, under the headline, On a Box, a Lie, and a Dancer Who Wouldn't Stay Down. It was longer than Alara had expected, 960 words, and it was careful and cold and precise, and it named Conrad Bellini, and it did not name Adrian Voss in a single sentence that was unkind, and it quoted Alara saying, "We are workers, that's all." And it mentioned the paint and the fire, and the way the fire report had not accounted for the paint. By Friday afternoon, Conrad Bellini had been uninvited from 3 private clubs, 2 charity events, and a foundation board he had been on for 11 years. By Friday evening, a reporter from the Metro section had called the fire marshal's office about the paint, and the fire marshal's office had not returned the call, which was itself a story the reporter began writing. By Saturday morning, Vittoria Salamanca was sitting in her penthouse 40 stories above the river, with the Tribune open on her lap, and the smile she had worn the week before was gone, and her assistant Dinah was standing very still by the door. She didn't take the bait, Vittoria said quietly. No, ma'am. I gave her a fire, and she turned it into a press conference. Yes, ma'am. Get me Oscar. Get me... Oscar was the man she used when she did not want to use a man like Vince Kozak, because Oscar was the man who did the things that had to look afterward like acts of the city itself. Storms, muggings, the kind of random violence that nobody could pin on anyone. Oscar had been on a retainer from the Salamanca organization for 19 years. Dinah said, without meeting her eyes, "Ma'am, Oscar hasn't checked in since Tuesday." What? His handler hasn't heard from him. We sent someone to his apartment Wednesday night. He wasn't there. His car was gone. His phone was off. We sent someone again Thursday. Nothing. We assumed... We thought he was on a job for someone else. He isn't allowed to take other jobs. No, ma'am. He isn't. No, ma'am. Vittoria Salamanca sat very still in her chair. She was a woman who, at the age of 51, had survived 2 attempts on her own life, a federal investigation, and the complete dissolution of her first family, and she was not a woman easily rattled. But she understood, watching Dinah fail to make eye contact, that something had shifted in the last 48 hours that she had not been told about, and that understanding made her, for the first time in a long time, physically cold. "Who else?" she said. "Ma'am? Who else is missing?" Dinah hesitated.
Vince Kozak has not been home since Tuesday night. His girlfriend called the building 3 times. His phone is off. 3 of my people. 2, ma'am, Oscar and Vince, plus a journalist we had been working with who was returning calls last week and is not returning calls this week. 3, if you count her. Get me Voss on the phone. Ma'am. Get me Voss on the phone, Dinah. Dinah left the room.
Adrian took the call in his library on a landline, with Nikolai standing by the window. He listened for a long time. He said very little. When he hung up, he stood with his hand on the receiver for a moment, and then he looked at Nikolai. And Nikolai, for the first time in 3 weeks, saw something at the corner of Adrian's mouth that was close to a smile. She wants a meeting, Adrian said. Of course she does. Neutral ground, tomorrow. Of course, she said, and I quote, I would like to discuss a ceasefire. That word. She hasn't used that word in a decade. No. Adrian. Yes. Don't meet her. What? Don't meet her. Not yet. You have her scared. Scared is a good place to keep a woman like her for as long as you can. If you meet her now, you give her a way out, and she will take the way out, and she will rest and come back. Let her stew another week. Let her wonder what else you have. Let her discover on her own that Kozak is in a hotel in a different country telling us things. Let her find out on her own that the journalist is not coming back. By next Friday, she is going to call you again, and the tone will be different, and she is going to ask for the meeting on terms that actually mean something. And Vega. Vega we deal with sooner, not her. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. All right, he said. All right. I'll see Vega on Tuesday. I'll set it up. And I will ask Alara tonight about walking in with me. That's your call. That's a hard thing to ask. I know it.
Alara was upstairs, in the room at the end of the hall. She had moved into the building on Lantana Avenue on Thursday, a narrow brick building on a quiet street with a locksmith's on the ground floor and a dentist's office on the second and the top floor, a long loft with high windows and no furniture to speak of, because she had lost most of her furniture in the fire on Verity Street. She had spent Thursday night sleeping on a mattress on the floor with her coat as a blanket. She had spent Friday morning buying a kettle, a lamp, and a single plate, because those were the 3 things she had decided she could not live without for another day. She had brought the kettle with her to the house that afternoon in a canvas bag, because she had a superstition about new kettles that required them to travel once before being used, a thing her mother had made up when she was 6 and that she had never been able to unlearn. She was, at that moment, moving through the arm swing, slowly, with her eyes closed, alone in the room. Adrian came up the stairs. She heard him. She did not open her eyes. Come in, she said. I haven't knocked. I know your walk. He came in. He stood by the bench. He watched her finish the arm swing. When she opened her eyes, she looked at him and saw his face, and she said, What? Come downstairs for a minute. She came down. He walked her to the library. He sat her in one of the chairs. He sat in the other. And he told her, in order, what had happened over the last 4 days. The pickup of Vince Kozak on Tuesday night, and the conversation with him Wednesday morning, which had gone for 11 hours and had produced 3 notebooks of information. The disappearance, on Wednesday evening, of a man named Oscar, who had worked for Salamanca for almost 20 years and had been placed, now, on a plane to a country that did not extradite. The journalist, who had been approached Thursday morning by a lawyer who had presented her with a file on herself and on her relationship with Vittoria Salamanca, and who had quietly left town Thursday afternoon and had been, since then, not returning calls. The phone call from Salamanca, this morning. A ceasefire, Alara said. Yes. You're not taking it. No. Nikolai says not yet. Good. I'm going to see Tomas Vega on Tuesday. All right, Alara? Yes. I need to ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly. If the honest answer is no, that's the answer, and we move on. Ask, will you walk with me into the building where I am meeting Vega? Not into the room, into the building, down the hall, in the lobby. So Vega sees you beside me. So he understands, visually, that you are not something he can use against me, because you are not something that is being protected. You are something that is walking next to me. That's what Nikolai wants. That's what I am asking. You can say no. She thought about it.
What does it mean? It means you have chosen this. It means to a man like Vega that you are standing here because you want to stand here. It changes how he moves next. He will not move against you, because moving against you would no longer be moving against a weakness of mine. It would be moving against a person with her own opinion about me, which means it would be moving against something unpredictable. And Vega does not move against unpredictable things without a lot of preparation. And if I say no, then I go alone and we handle Vega a different way. It will be harder. It can be done. It is not your job to make it easier. Adrian. Yes. Yes. Yes? Yes. I'll walk in with you. You're sure? I'm sure. You don't have to answer now. I am answering now. All right. One thing. Tell me. When we walk in, I don't want you to hold my arm. I don't want to look like I'm being walked in. I want to walk in, on my own feet, next to you. All right. And when we walk out, if there's a moment I need to, I want to look him in the eye, Vega. I want to look him in the eye as we pass. I want him to see my face. Is that all right? Adrian looked at her. Yes, he said quietly. That is all right. Tuesday afternoon was cold and bright, with a thin, hard sun that cut across the plaza in front of the Meridian building and lit up the glass. Adrian's car pulled up. Nikolai was in the front seat, Paulina at the wheel, Ilara in the back with Adrian. She was in a dark navy coat and a simple black dress and low heels, and she had put her hair up in the way she had used to put it up for performances, a tight, clean twist with nothing decorative about it, and she had put on a small gold ring of her mother's that she had not worn in years. She had decided that morning that she was going to look like someone who had dressed for herself, because women who dressed for themselves read, at a glance, as women who had not been sent. Adrian got out. He walked around the car. He did not open her door. She opened her own. He waited for her on the sidewalk, and when she stepped up next to him, he said very quietly, "Good." They walked in together. The lobby of the Meridian was enormous and white and cold, a place built to make you feel small. Thomas Vega was standing at the far end of the lobby with 3 of his lieutenants, which was 2 more than had been agreed upon, but which Adrian had expected. Vega was a broad, short man with a wrestler's neck and the thoughtful, almost sleepy eyes of a man who had learned a long time ago that looking sleepy in a meeting was the single most useful disguise a dangerous man could wear. Ilara walked. She did not look at her feet. She did not hold Adrian's arm. She walked next to him, her eyes forward, her hands loose at her sides. Her heels made a small, clean sound on the marble. The walk was 30 feet. It felt like more. Vega watched her come. His eyes moved quickly, from Adrian to her, and then back to Adrian, and then back to her. His face did not change, but something in his shoulders did. The small set of them dropped, 1/4 of an inch, the way a man's shoulders drop when he sees a thing he was not expecting and has to adjust. They stopped 6 feet from him. Nikolai stayed 2 steps behind Adrian's right. The 3 lieutenants did not move. Voss, Tomas, Miss Quinn. Ilara nodded. She did not smile. She did not offer her hand. She looked Vega in the eye. Vega looked back. Whatever passed between them happened in the space of about 3 seconds, and it did not need to be spoken out loud, because Vega was a man who understood things that were not spoken out loud. And what he understood in that moment was that the woman in front of him was not a concession, and she was not a trophy, and she was not going to cry if he said something ugly to her. And that therefore the strategy he had brought into this building was not the strategy that was going to work in this building. "I'll go up with you," he said to Adrian finally, "and we'll talk. Miss Quinn, there's a lounge on the 42nd floor. The coffee is decent. I'll wait here in the lobby, thank you." "In the lobby?" "In the lobby. Near the window. I'd rather not sit down." "As you like." Adrian and Vega and Nikolai and the 3 lieutenants went to the elevators. Ilara walked to the window. She did not look at them. She looked at the plaza. She stood there very still with her hands folded at her waist, and she watched the pigeons, and she counted her breaths. The meeting upstairs took 40 minutes. When Adrian came down, his face was the same face it had been going up, which was, she had come to understand, a tell in itself. The fact that there was no tell meant the meeting had gone well. He crossed the lobby. He did not come to her immediately. He stopped 5 feet short, and he waited for her to come to him because he had understood, without being told, that walking to her in front of Vega would have undone, in a second, everything the walk-in had done. She crossed to him. "Let's go," he said. "All right." They walked out. Vega was at the elevators, watching them. Elara turned her head, just once, as they stepped through the revolving door, and she looked Vega in the eye across 30 feet of marble. Vega held her eyes for a moment. Then he did something she had not expected. A small thing, almost nothing. He nodded. Once, the way one professional nods to another at the end of a negotiation. She nodded back. And then they were on the sidewalk, and the cold hit her face, and she realized she was shaking. "In the car," Adrian said quietly. "Not here." "In the car." She got in. He got in. Paulina pulled out. Nikolai in the front did not turn around. "It went well?" she asked. "It went well." "How well?" "He is going to stand down. Not because he likes me, because he has decided the cost of moving is too high right now. He will be back. He is always back, but not this year. Possibly not next year. That is the best a man like me gets from a man like him." "And Salamanca?" "Salamanca is a different conversation. Salamanca will come next week. The terms will be different when she does." Nikolai was right about her. "And what Vega said to me upstairs, what did he say when I wasn't in the room?" Adrian was quiet for a moment. Then he said, she's real. That's the exact phrase. She's real. And then he said, "Don't lose her." She looked out the window. "He doesn't get to decide that for us," she said after a while. "No." "Neither do you." "No." "Neither do I, really." "No." They drove back to Lantana Avenue in the long gold light of an afternoon that had started to feel, for the first time in weeks, like it was bending toward something other than disaster. Salamanca's call came on Thursday. It was not Salamanca on the line. It was a lawyer. The lawyer was polite. The lawyer suggested, on behalf of his client, that it might be in the mutual interest of several parties for certain ongoing activities to be suspended. The lawyer did not use the word ceasefire. He used the word de-escalation. He proposed a framework. Nikolai listened to the lawyer for 14 minutes. When the lawyer was done, Nikolai said, "I'll convey this to my principal. He will not respond before Monday. In the meantime, if there is any further interference with Miss Elara Quinn or with any property belonging to her or to anyone connected to her, the framework you have just described will be considered null, and we will proceed on the understanding that your client has chosen the alternative path. Do we understand each other?" The lawyer said they understood each other. On Monday, Adrian called the lawyer back, and the framework was accepted, and by the end of the following week, a number of quiet adjustments had been made in the distribution of certain properties and certain influence across the city, and Vittoria Salamanca was a smaller woman than she had been, and she was, for now, alive. And she knew that this was a kindness she had not been owed. It had not taken 6 months. It had taken 8 weeks. Elara heard about it on a Tuesday in December, in the upstairs room at the end of the hall. Adrian told her in his shirt sleeves, sitting on the bench by the window, while she coiled the cord of the record player. "It's done," he said. "Done, done, done enough. She's agreed to terms. She's not going to come for you again. She's not going to come for me again in any way she can afford. She has lost a lot of money and a lot of ground. She will rebuild. That takes years. And Vega has decided I'm still worth leaving alone. So, done." That was fast. You were fast. I was? The piece by Delia Mendez, naming Bellini, naming the fire, not naming me. That piece did more work than a year of what Nikolai and I could have done. It put her on the defensive in a way I could not have put her on the defensive. You did that. I made a phone call. You did more than that. She sat down on the bench next to him. She was in a sweater and pants. She had, over the weeks, stopped dressing up for the lessons. They were past the part of things where anyone was dressing up. "Adrian." "Yes." "Your hand." He looked down at his right hand. He held it out. It was still. He had been holding it out in this room, every day, for 9 weeks. The last time she had seen it tremble, really tremble, the way it used to, had been the Sunday after the fire. And that had been, she realized, almost 5 weeks ago. "I noticed," he said quietly. "I've noticed for a while.
You didn't tell me. I didn't want to jinx it. You don't jinx things. I know.
They sat there. The winter light was coming in low through the windows, and there were small bare branches visible against the sky, and somewhere below them in the house, Nikolai was cooking something that smelled like onions and beef. Elara. Yes. I want to ask you something, and I want to ask it badly. I am not good at asking it. Ask it. Stay. Stay where?
Wherever you want. The apartment on Lantana Avenue is yours. I gave you the papers this morning. Nikolai has them downstairs. The building is in a trust, and the trust is in your name, and it is not in my name, and nobody can take it from you, and I cannot take it from you. Stay in the city. Stay. Stay close. Keep coming up here if you want, or don't, if you don't. I am not asking you for something I don't have the right to ask for. I am asking you to stay in my life, in whatever shape you choose. That's what I'm asking. Because if you leave, you should know that I will not ask you to come back. I will respect it. But I am asking now, while you are here, for you not to leave. She was quiet for a long time. She thought about the cellist in Boston and about the thing he had said to her once. She thought about the thing her mother had told her when she was 14, right before the first real audition of her life, which was that the only decisions that mattered in a life were the ones you made when you were frightened and had the option of leaving. She thought about the $3,000 in the coffee tin under the sink in an apartment that did not exist anymore. She thought about the tremor in his hand, the first night, and the way it had traveled into her palm. She thought about the walk across the marble lobby of the Meridian. She thought about Tomas Vega's nod. She thought about what it would mean to say yes. She thought about what it would mean to say no. I'll stay, she said. Elara, I'll stay in the city. I'll stay in your life. I'm not going to move into your house. Not yet. Maybe not ever, I don't know. I like having my own walls. I like closing a door that is mine, but I will stay. All right? And I'm going to teach again. Teach. Dance. I'm going to start a small studio. I've been thinking about it. Not a company. A studio. Children, mostly. Teenagers, girls who are where I was at 13. I want to teach them what I know. Not all of it. The useful part. The part about how to stand on your own 2 feet when the whole room is watching you and a man who is more powerful than you is telling you what you are. That part. I want to teach that part. I can help you with that. I know you can. I don't want you to pay for it. All right. I want to build it myself. I'll take students. I'll charge them what they can pay. I'll rent a room somewhere. I might fail. I might succeed. Either way, I'm going to do it myself. All right. And you are going to learn the piano. He laughed. It was the first real laugh she had heard out of him. A short surprise sound, boyish. I am not. You are. I'm going to teach you. Badly, probably. I only played 6 years. But I played. You're going to sit on that bench, and you are going to put your hands on those keys, and you are going to play something your mother played. That's the deal. If you are going to ask me to stay, you are going to finally sit down on that bench. That's the price. That is not a price. It is to you. He looked at her for a long moment. All right, he said. Say it. I will learn the piano. Good. When? Tonight. Tonight. After dinner. We are going to go down to the library, and you are going to sit on that bench, and we are going to find the simplest piece in that stack of music, and you are going to play 4 bars. 4. That's all for tonight. 4 bars. 4 bars. Then we stop. That's the whole lesson. Elara? Yes. That's the first lesson you ever gave me. I know. 40 minutes of standing in a room. I know. It's going to work. Probably. Thank you. I told you to stop apologizing for things, and I told you to stop thanking me for things. I know. So stop. All right. They went downstairs. Nikolai was at the stove. He looked up when they came in, and he saw Adrian's face, and he saw her face, and he did not ask. He stirred the pot. He put down the spoon. Dinner in an hour, he said. All right. Paulina's staying too, I told her.
She said yes. Good. After dinner, they went into the library. The fire was going. Adrian sat on the piano bench. She sat next to him. She opened the topmost book of sheet music, which was a collection of simple pieces, children's pieces, the kind of music a woman might have bought for a son she hoped would learn. On the first page was a short prelude, 8 bars long, in C. Elara put her finger on the first note. She showed him which key. He played it. It was a small sound, clumsy, out of time. He played it again. Better. The 4th bar he missed. He stopped. He breathed. He tried again. He got through 4 bars. He looked at her. His right hand was resting on the keys. It was still. 4 bars, she said. 4 bars. That's the lesson. That's the lesson. He closed the book. He did not close the lid of the piano. He left it open, with the book on top, and in the weeks and months that followed, it would stay open, and the book would stay there. And he would sit down on the bench once or twice a day and work through 4 bars, and then 8, and then 12. And he would never become a pianist exactly, but he would become a man who sat on a piano bench in his own library and played the first 16 bars of a piece his mother had loved. And that, in the end, was what the piano had been waiting for 20 years. A year later, in the same upstairs room at the end of the hall, Elara was teaching 4 girls how to stand in a line. They were between the ages of 10 and 13. They came from the Lantana neighborhood. They paid what they could, which for 2 of them was nothing at all, and she did not make it a thing. The room had a long mirror now, and a proper bar, and a good speaker in the corner, and the pine floor had been resanded once and was already beginning to show the honest marks of bare feet. She had named the studio Quinn Studio because she had tried other names and they had all felt false, and her own name had stopped feeling false sometime in the last year, which was its own kind of progress. On that afternoon, Adrian came up the stairs at 4 o'clock, which was when he came up most afternoons when he was in the city and not in the hills. He stood in the doorway. He watched her for a minute without saying anything. The girls noticed him. 2 of them waved. He waved back. "Can I borrow your teacher?" he said to them. 5 more minutes, Elara said, not turning around. "Finish the combination." He waited. She finished the class. She sent the girls home. "Tonight," he said, when they were alone. "The gala. The one at the palace. You don't have to come. I know you don't like those rooms. I know. I'm asking anyway. I know." She walked over to the window and looked out at the street, and she thought about it for a moment, and she turned around. "I'll come." "All right. On one condition." "Name it." "I picked the music for the first dance." He looked at her for a long time. Then he smiled, a real smile, with the corner of his mouth and everything behind it. "All right," he said. That night, in a room 300 people deep, in a ballroom with a painted ceiling and old gold light, Elara Quinn walked in beside Adrian Voss. She was in a black dress of her own choosing. She was in shoes she had bought with her own money. She was in her mother's pendant, which tonight she wore on the outside of the dress, not the inside. Her hair was up. Her hands were steady. She was 30 years old. She was not a statue. The band began to play the piece she had asked for, which was not a tango. It was a simple slow waltz, in C, 8 bars long, that she had taught a man to play in a library at the end of a hard year. He led her onto the floor. They stood in the middle of the room. He put his right hand on her back. His right hand was steady. It had been steady for a long time now. "Follow me," he murmured, because it was the line from the first night, and because they had long since made a small joke of it between them. "No," she said softly. "Follow me." And they danced. In the long years after, there would be other fires. There would be other Vegas and other Salamancas and other nights in other rooms where a thing happened that could not be taken back. Life, Elara would learn, did not deliver its troubles all at once and then retire. Life kept coming. Life kept trying its small and large cruelties, the way weather keeps trying. What she had learned, what she had earned in that ballroom on a Thursday in October the year before, and in a house in the hills, and in a lobby of white marble, and on a piano bench, and on a box she had stood on for 3 hours with a cut on her foot, was that the only thing she had ever needed was to stop being afraid of the weather. The weather was the weather. You did not win by outrunning it. You won by planting your feet, And the deepest thing, the thing she would tell the girls in her studio when they were old enough to hear it, was that trust was not a soft thing. Trust was not what you gave to somebody because they had earned it. Trust was the weight you put down when you stopped trying to carry yourself alone. Trust was a decision you made in a room full of people who wanted you to fail. And you made it once, and then you made it again the next morning, and then you made it again. And eventually, without noticing when, you had built a life out of all those small decisions, and the life was harder to break than any of its pieces had been. A broken dancer had taught a dangerous man to stand still in a room. A dangerous man had taught a broken dancer that she was not, in fact, broken. And the city, which had watched them both for a long time now, had learned, without wanting to, that the most unbreakable thing in a place ruled by knives was two people who had decided, separately and together, to stop running. That was the story.